Welcome to Waterworld, where dirt comes at a premium, pirates rule the seas, and the weather can be a little difficult sometimes.
Oh, it's demolishing the house.
I put together an awesome mod pack that will allow me to sail the ocean in a custom-built ship, taking on all of the different enemies, trying to discover the secrets of Davy Jones's locker, and getting myself quite a lot of booty along the way.
And speaking of booty, if you want to get yourself some, there's a brand new Skull of Doom merch design now available in the store. Don't worry, that will make sense later.
So let's get ready to set sail. Day 1.
All right, a brand new adventure, and I spawn on one block.
All right, so land is going to be at a premium here, so I need to get swimming. I dove underwater, finding a drowned settlement directly underneath me, and I had to do a kind of back and forth to be able to get the coal and wheat from in there, swimming over towards some driftwood that was floating on top of the ocean, which I'm able to break down and get some very quick starting gear. I marked off where spawn was and jumped in my rowboat in the middle of the ocean, being buffeted around by the waves and heading towards the closest ship, which did not appear to be friendly, with a bunch of skulls hanging off of the side. So I thought, let's head in a different direction right now. I have literally nothing to my name, ending up on a yacht that had a ton of really useful stuff in the chest. But I also broke down a little bit of their sails to get the wool necessary to be able to make a bed, using some of the lapis to make a blue bed to match the blue ocean that I'm living on. But with everything grabbed from that ship, I sailed over towards a nearby large galleon, which, despite being filled with a ton of resources and supplies, was suspiciously empty, which made me a little bit nervous, I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of stuff sitting here in block form, as well as good loot in the chests, and mainly the iron is what I'm really excited about right now. Grabbing some bread, food, and supplies, and checking out the lower decks as well to make sure that I'm not gonna get jumped by any enemies.
Hello? There's just nobody on the ship?
And it turned out, yes, this ship had been abandoned, which makes me worried as to why, but I'm not going to complain at the crossbows and food in the chests, which gives me a good starting point considering growing food is basically going to be impossible. There is no dirt. I even picked up a potion of luck out of the brewing stand, and that's going to make looting further ships oh so much more profitable. But I took a quick nap right here on the deck going into day 2, where I'm mainly focused on breaking down and organizing all of the loot from across this ship. I threw down a chest near the center of the ship where I was able to consolidate a lot of the loot that I had collected from around, crafting most of it into ingot form and then into some rudimentary armor, which would allow me to get protected, as well as some starter tools. I spent some time breaking down all of the coal, which will be necessary for fueling a ship at a later stage, grabbing things like the jute box or the creeper head as wonderful trophies to be able to put inside the loot hoard. I also made sure to go down to the lower decks to grab things like the smoker, the furnace, the cauldron, which was full of water, which went everywhere. But at this point, I have kind of the inverse problem that I normally do at the start of these 100 days. I have a ton of stuff and nowhere to put it. There's no backpacks in this mod pack. There is no way to consolidate this storage. It's just chests, and I'm gonna need a lot of them. But I spent a little bit more time continuing to smelt and consolidate things down, getting a large supply of cooked food so I'd have the healing capabilities to take on some more combat focused challenges, left my name in the logbook so everybody knew that I was here on day 2, and found a redstone block just sitting on the deck, which will be useful to build an engine. We'll get to that recipe in a bit. But as I started into day 3, I wanted to dive underwater because I needed some cobblestone. So I used a lot of the trapdoors that I had collected, forgetting that trapdoors don't block water. That's only the tall doors that do that. So I crafted up a few driftwood doors, starting to set up a very rudimentary mine to get myself underwater, going back up to get some torches so I and you can see what's actually going on, heading underground. I'm not only searching for cobblestone right here, I'm mainly looking for andesite, because that's going to be extremely critical for some of the ship components that I need to build. And still having only looted like 3 ships, I've filled a double chest and have more than enough when it comes to treasure. I just need to find a way to get to transporting it. I used the last of my iron to complete my armor set so that I'm fully decked out in pirate garb that looks a little bit more appropriate. Seeing other ships in the distance and thinking maybe I do a little bit more rowing around before I actually commit to building myself a vessel. And as I did that searching, I realized there were some illegal things around.
Is that land? Ocean only world, day 3, and I find land.
Land is banned. Land is not allowed. I couldn't fully remove it with the way that this world generator worked. Instead, I needed to make it really, really, really rare. There's literally a 0.1% chance that it will spawn, but given an infinite Minecraft world, yeah, okay, we're gonna get a little bit of land. But I'm never gonna set foot on it. You're not allowed to be there. Let's just say that I'm wanted on every island ever. Okay? Cool.
There's a lot of TNT right there. No, I am just tempted. This could be funny. Yeah, let's do it. Oh, that didn't do anything. Oh, that did quite a bit. Oh, it had literally a weak point on it. Oh, this is my favorite design ever. Oh, that's gonna blow up too. Oh, this is my favorite ship design ever.
Having done massive damage to the overall hull of this ship, I spent a little bit more time jumping around, being a little bit nervous at the underwater spawners, not knowing what they would actually throw my way, but clearing out the decks of this ship, making sure to be very careful with the TNT that was here, that any skeletons that might just have a flame bow or might get a lucky shot on a target block wouldn't be able to set everything off. Getting down to the lower levels actually took a while. It was a bit of a struggle as I'm still in low level gear and arrows are doing pretty decent damage to me so far. It doesn't help also that I completely decimated this ship, so actually being able to navigate around the thing, especially near the bow, is a bit of a problem. I did spend some time gathering all of the valuables from this ship, trying to see whatever I could find, seeing one skeleton sunk down underwater, just trying their absolute best.
Oh, there they are.
But with the pirate ship conquered, I headed back towards the galleon that I was currently stationed at, smelting down a few of the raw materials that I had collected from the treasure hoard on the other boat, and having to put down a second chest to organize out treasure loot from just things like blocks that I had been collecting. I'm really only going to be able to get resources from ships like this, so I'm gonna need to be very careful, very decisive on what I'm going to take. First thing I really need to build is a ship's engine, but that requires a bunch of different resources, some of them kind of hard to find in this world, so it's gonna take me a little bit to get there. So I figured let's spend some more time breaking down the parts of the ship that would be useful that I'd be able to convert into my own mobile ship platform later. And I'm already starting to think about a long-term base in this world and what I'm going to want to build, but there's other things I'm gonna need to take care of before that. I broke down all of the kelp blocks to be able to use for fuel, broke down all of the copper, as that's a very useful resource for a lot of the things I want to build. Any of the workstation blocks, basically anything valuable on the ship has been consolidated down into these 2 chests. But there's more that I need before I'm going to be able to actually build out my own ship, so I'm stuck with a dinghy for now. I went out sailing, finding a magma ravine, which is very useful. It's a way to get down to the bottom of the ocean and still be able to mostly breathe, going from magma block to do a little bit of mining around trying to get a couple diamonds. I did find a spot where the water gave way to some very deep caves with creepers and skeletons just camping out and waiting for me there, grabbing a bit more gold from around the flooded areas of the map, as underwater mining is extremely profitable as long as you can make sure to, breathe. I did find my very first block of diamonds. It was just a singular one, unfortunately, grabbing any other gold that I saw before breaking back to the surface late at night and realizing I'd lost my rowboat. I was actually extremely nervous that the whales would eat me here, so as soon as I was in the boat, I beelined it north towards a nearby small fleet of ships, which turned out to be an aquatic-based village.
Bacon. Oh, yes. That's right. We can cook. Golden apple, nice. That's so good. And a piercing book increase as well. The only problem is my inventory is already maxed.
I mean, it absolutely was, but that wasn't going to stop me from looking around a little bit more and at least seeing what I could find around here. There's a warrior chest plate sitting in one of the chests, which can up my damage whenever I'm not at max health, and let's be honest, I'm never at max health. A bunch of apples, gold, emeralds, other supplies, another luck potion waiting in the brewing stand, which I really should have drank before continuing to loot. Don't worry, we'll actually do that in a future time. The barrels are full of all sorts of different food and supplies. Overall, these villages are extremely valuable, but I don't have the space to take everything right now. So I sailed back towards my galleon, setting all of the gold to smelt up so that I'd be able to consolidate on inventory space, putting down all of the blocks and getting things in place, and harvesting whatever other wood I could from around the ship to be able to collect enough that I'd be able to build up my own boat. The only problem was it started to storm, and the weather on the high seas can get dangerous. Thankfully, that storm didn't seem to settle on me, and that was lucky, let me tell you, because storms get chaotic. But now that I've been collecting supplies for a week, it's time to actually build a boat. First up was some floaters, which would allow the boat to actually, float. Seems useful. Secondly was the ship's helm. Now you see why I've been hoarding gold so much. I need a ton of it in order to make the actual helm for the boat. I made the gold blocks necessary, the few gears which require some of the different create supplies, and the posts to be able to finally steer a ship. Now that I can actually make a ship, the goal is to get myself seaworthy and up and running. To prevent any potential issues, I sailed away from this boat so that it wouldn't somehow connect to the structure, finding a spot where the kelp was pretty close to the water, and I was able to build my way up to make something floating on top of the ocean. From there, I just started making a little bit of a rudimentary boat shape, some basic walls behind me to protect me, and a basic, bow to the thing so that it'll actually cut through the water. Once I chopped down all of the kelp, making sure that nothing was anywhere close, I plopped down the wheel and activated my ship.
Get that out of the offhands. Okay, here we go. Hopefully this doesn't break the whole map. Ship is too big. Max size is 32,000. Oh, it thinks I'm trying to make it out of the water. Oh no. Oh, that's not good. Ow.
So now that the main hull of the ship was done, I threw the floaters in, so now that the whole thing would kind of bounce on the water's surface, reassembled it, and now we're cooking.
We're going. I don't want to talk about that water being glitched right there. We're moving. Nice. It's slow. It's very slow because I don't have an engine yet, but it's something. We're making progress. We can sail out of here in the future to make our life nice and easy. But now we can sail with storage. This ship, by the end of this, is going to look about as good as that ship, if I can do my job right. But we start with basically a rowboat? I mean, I guess a normal boat is a rowboat. We start with a raft. A very tiny, very sad raft.
But with the ship acquired, that is a very successful week 1. Priority the following morning was just moving everything off of the galleon and onto the boat so that I'd be able to carry my supplies along with me. My next stage as far as enhancing the ship is building out an engine, which is going to take a lot of supplies to do. So I'm going to be stuck with what I have right now for a little bit. I replaced the back of the boat with barrels that I'd be able to store everything in, realizing that certain things like item frames or the actual bell in the bell don't show up fully properly with the boat. This is doing something that Minecraft never really intended, so it's okay. We're just gonna kind of ignore those little hiccups and just work around it. Sound good? Cool. But I consolidated everything I could into its crate or block form to be able to get as much out of my storage as I possibly could, throwing down everything, including my bed, which, yes, is invisible now, using one of the treasure maps to take a snapshot of the ship, which had served me so well. And now that I had proper mobile storage, first order of business was to return to the villager fleet.
You are way out from... Why are you all... They're all leaving. There's something I should know? They're genuinely all just leaving. Well, more for me. Please don't leave. I need friends. They are all off their boats.
Well, if they're gonna abandon ship, this turns from piracy to salvaging, where I went through all of the individual ships in the fleet, collecting all of the resources here. There was a ton of food and coal that'll be useful for powering my ship at a later date, as well as a few different modded and unique armor pieces, which will allow me to do some cool things. As I continued sailing around the ship, I did collect a few other stowaways, grabbing the things like sponges, brewing stands, the dripstone, anything that could be turned into something renewable or useful down the line. But I did realize that it might be a little bit cheeky just carrying around a few villagers across the ocean, so I pushed them overboard. But the world is my oyster, and I have so much to explore across the deep blue sea. There are some shipwrecks that I marked to be able to approach a little bit later when I can stay underwater longer, pulling up on a few very small dinghies populated by pirate zombies and skeletons. I took on a few of the skeletons, approaching from underneath and stabbing in the ankles, getting hit by the zombie and being cursed by the sea. That Deadly Seas curse is actually extremely dangerous. There's a few different cases where you can get caught out in the open water without any way to get back onto a boat. But I looted the dinghy here, collecting everything, including their sails, which will be useful for making more floaters down the line for when my ship gets heavier. I also sailed my way into warmer and brighter blue waters, finding a few other of those yachts that I was able to pull up on, getting a lot of wool from their sails with shears, which I'm going to use as a building block for my base idea for this 100 days. Spending actually most of the day just collecting all of the sails from this one ship, and it's over 2 stacks of wool. Just how big did the sails actually need to be? The following morning, I continued my trip across the high seas, finally running into another ship of pirates. I was very quick to take out the zombies, which would curse me taking damage in water, because I don't know if that includes rain or not, and that's basically a death sentence. And I'm a little nervous that if that storm happens to pick me up or throw me off my boat, I'm gonna die. I made it onto the ship proper, being able to loot the explosives that they're keeping up in the crow's nest, taking out the mobs that actually fell into the ocean around the ship, who are doing significant damage. A piece of rotten flesh does like 3 hearts. But I was able to throw down a fence post which blocked the door, keeping the anchor skeleton inside. Once I killed them, I was able to unlock some real booty.
Another man's treasure. A bandana of rage. Oh, wait, a key.
Probably for that. There were a few more pirates in the lower decks, which were also partially flooded. Doesn't seem very sanitary. And the key unlocked a treasure chest, which dropped off something awesome.
Oh, the skull. That's sick. Also, that's just good. Oh, I just always have strength now. Oh, I am so dangerous.
Look, this is a very D&D aspect, but if you get a broken sword, you're gonna get a really awesome sword if you just are careful enough. I looted everything out of the bottom of the ship, condensing it all down into ingots and then sailing away, before researching an engine and what it would take to build that. It's going to require me to get into the create mod a little bit, so it's really pushing me to settle down and build at least a temporary base. I sailed over and looted a slightly above water drowned ruin, grabbing some stuff out of the chest, passing by another villager fleet and onto another one of the massive abandoned galleons that dot this ocean, getting a ton of resources from all around. Having already looted one of these before, I knew where all the goodies were, grabbing the TNT and wood so I'd be able to expand my boat and blow up others, sleeping on my raft very quickly before trying to figure out what a good spot would be. I ended up passing by another undead pirate ship, and this one was definitely bigger with more mobs that I don't really want to fight, considering a whale's also attacking them at the moment. So I marked the location and continued heading south, finding these 3 pieces of driftwood that were pretty central to everything that I had explored so far and made me think it would be a good potential base location. And here's where all of that wool comes in. I want to build something that kind of feels like an oil rig or a platform that's floating on the ocean. And I figure some giant pontoons, which will look like they're floating on the ocean, make for a really good foundation for the base and a good use of all of this wool that I've collected. I started building one, making some wooden strapping around it to make it feel like it was actually supporting the structure, having one of those pirates swim a pretty decent way to come try and kill me, but thankfully they didn't catch me when I was in the water. And I've got a lot of building ahead of me, so let's cue up a little time lapse.
And there we go. A platform with a reason why it's floating. Is it an efficient use of wool? No. Are we gonna say anything about it? Also no. I was gonna build a base or another ship or something like that, but I thought, with this being a revisit, I explicitly want to revisit the base that I built all the way back in that first modded video. So we're gonna make that, but newer. Enter a reason that has a thing to float. I said that backwards. Enter a thing that has a reason to float. Now let's move some loot over here.
With a little bit of a platform now established, I moved some of the barrels over towards the actual base, starting to build up some of the towers and different sections that I'm going to build on top of this platform. I want it to feel like kind of an oil rig. So everything needs to have a purpose, but it's also going to be multi-tiered, multi-leveled, and it's going to look like something that I could not exactly steer around. That's what my ship is for, but something that I could call home safely in the middle of the ocean. I'm also trying to keep organized. I'm trying to have each barrel be a specific type of item that I need to collect, and desperately trying to make sure that the loot game is going to be manageable, because there's going to be a lot of it. So that's why even just getting everything in place, getting the torches down, and the base built took all day. But now that I have a safe place where everything is stored in a central location that I can come back to, it's time to make my ship a little bit faster. And the first thing there is upgrading my engines. That requires some andesite casings, which I thought some stripped driftwood logs would be able to do, but unfortunately no. The mods there just aren't compatible with each other. So I bone mealed some of the moss to get an azalea bush, which I then bone mealed to get a proper azalea tree, not an oak one. But thankfully this mod was cross-compatible with Create, so I was able to make the andesite casings I needed, cleaning up all of the moss and then making a whole bunch of iron blocks, which I could then turn into some of the different Create components so I could start working forward towards a ship. And as I made myself a water wheel to start working on some automation, the weather was getting a little rough. But I just tried to work through it, setting up a water wheel, a really rough water wheel, but a water wheel nonetheless, along one of the legs of what I was gonna have be the kind of upper house that I was going to live in. And then the weather kept getting rougher and rougher.
Oh, that's a tornado.
The suck zone.
Is it heading this way? I can't tell. I don't think so. I think it's heading in parallel to me. Oh, no, 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 that's pulling me. We should move. Wait, is this gonna destroy my thing? Oh no. Nope. 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 No. No. No, 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 no.
Suck zone.
Oh no! I have like next to nothing on me. Come on. Get away from the storm. Get away from the storm. Get away from the storm. Don't get that far away from the storm. Ah! I am in the sky. So are a couple jellyfish? Oh, and a cat. Oh, is that the cat from the boat? Oh, no. Also, this is heading straight for my platform. Please don't eat it. This is so not good. I need to be so careful about where I exit the storm because the fall damage will be lethal if I don't hit the ocean.
I swam away from the tornado, making sure to stay underwater so I wouldn't get pulled into the suck zone, making my way back towards another one of the galleon ships where I was able to get a little bit of wool, make myself a sleeping bag, and take a quick nap. Once it was the morning, I jumped in a rowboat and headed back towards the platform to assess the damage. I had actually gotten pretty lucky there, so I'm just back at it while the tornado starts heading off in its own path. I properly set up the water wheel, getting water running over that, setting up some gears off of that with a couple transitions from large to small gears so I could get some speed improvements. At first, I slightly overdid it, leading to me overstressing the system. But one fewer transition meant that I was able to smash iron ingots into iron plates, which would allow me to start working on some of the other components necessary to prep a proper engine. At this point, I had the iron blocks, the propeller, I was able to craft up some iron bars, then it's on to the bellows and a few of the other blocks, which I'm gonna have to do some mining for. I smelted up some copper so that I could get the pipes going, cooking a little bit of rotten flesh, which allows me to dry it into some leather. From there, I smashed some copper to make some copper pipes, had the one block of redstone that I had collected from the galleon, and we were left with just one component remaining.
Netherrack. That is actually potentially a little complicated. I can't go to the nether. It's not allowed. It seems silly to be able to go to the nether when the whole thing's supposed to be water world. I don't know, it just felt like a fair restriction. How do we get netherrack?
Figuring that out is a problem that I slept on, going the next day in a completely different tangent that had nothing to do with collecting netherrack. First, I'm exploring some of the ruins close by towards my base, finding a flooded pillager tower with a bunch of spawners that I had to break, and some really interesting loot.
Okay, there's just wolf spawn eggs in the chests. Ow. 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 Not good.
Dealing with the drown required several trips up and down above the surface since I kind of need to breathe, but I was rewarded for my efforts.
Oh, I got a trident! Yo! I have to be careful. If either of those hit me, I'm not allowed to touch the ocean, which would kill me. I got a trident though!
So already nailing one trident, I kept focusing on clearing the pillager tower, working my way down through all of the spawners using doors to provide some air pockets, but regularly being forced out of those air pockets dealing with so many mobs and having to head back up to the surface. And I figured while I'm up here, I should deal with the zombies that would almost certainly be a one-hit kill.
Oh, that's awesome!
Ow. Explosives like that are going to be really useful. I'm going to want to keep a few bombs sitting around. But nearby to the pillager tower was this prismarine quadrant. I don't know another name for it. It is just another small prismarine structure with some buried barrels underneath the gravel. But lucky for me, this one spawned on top of a ravine, so all of that gravel fell down into the lower area, exposing the loot. And as it was getting late, I headed back home. Lucky me, because a blood moon rose. But this blood moon was slightly quiet, honestly. Potentially because I needed to update some configurations in the back end and hadn't really made blood moons ocean compatible. Don't worry, future runs will be way, way worse. I made myself a diamond pick, calling it a night there. The following day, realizing I can get some netherrack by spraying water on a magma cube, but that's gonna require a little bit of engineering first. But I was actually out of stripped logs, so I thought, let's go get some wood. But the only place to get wood from is the ships, as remember, land is banned. So I headed over towards the stash ship that I had survived on quite some time ago, breaking down a lot of the back walls and interior spaces of the boat. I left it seaworthy. I kept any holes to the exterior plugged so that this would be a fully dry and floating and logically correct ship, just going much more open concept than it was previously. From there, I sailed back home, turning a lot of these stripped logs into copper casings, which I could turn into tanks, and also using some of the logs to complete the frame for what would be the second floor of one of the first towers that I'm gonna build on this oil rig. After that, I put down the tank, trying to fill it, and it doesn't work like a cauldron. Instead, you have to pump water into it. I'm really hoping I can just pump water up out of the ocean. So I started using the press to make a few more copper plates, making a spout with a piece of dried kelp and placing that up near the top of where the tank would eventually expand to, taking a quick nap and then setting that pipe down into the water. Now, I didn't need to go nearly as deep as I did, but it's an oil rig. You want it like way under the surface. Come on. But all of this ran me out of andesite. So I did a little bit of mining directly underneath my platform to make a small cave for a forward mining base that I'd be able to then dig around to in a hopefully air-filled pocket to be able to get a lot more andesite. I found some red clay, which is interesting, and a flooded ravine, which actually existed directly underneath my base. But on the other side of that ravine, in another pocket that I was able to make a dry space into, was filled with a decent portion of andesite. I also ended up with a lot of iron, which I started smelting up just to reinforce and replenish all of my stores, since I had spent so much iron, or at least reserved a lot of it for the engine that I wanted to make. Trying to use some kelp belts in corresponding with shafts and gears to be able to move the torque power over from the existing gears to pump water from the ocean into the tank that I had right there. And look, I barely get by when it comes to regular redstone. Once you introduce all of these gears and pulleys, yes, I make a clockwork menagerie that if you stepped anywhere near it in real life, you would be crushed to pieces in nanoseconds. But thankfully, gears don't do damage in the create mod. If there is a mod that enables that, let me know, because I think it would be really funny to add. But for right now, we're gonna go with, no, I just need to get the belts in place to get everything sorted.
Haha. And from here, take the belts. It does just suck water up out of the ocean.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, how do I get the water up into there? Need another pump and more pipes. Hopefully this is good. Yeah, it's overstressed. So if I break this, then that's okay. And I can put that there. That is very satisfying.
So I first tried to get the water up into the spout just by expanding the tank next to it, hoping that they would connect by being adjacent. No such luck. But watching the larger tank fill from water being pumped into it was extremely satisfying. Turns out the thing I needed to do was set up another pump, which required me to take some of the pipes that I had reserved for my engine and instead recommit them to the process of making the thing which would let me make the engine in the first place. And like I just said with the gears, whenever I make something with Create, be prepared for it to be kind of a mess. So I tore down all of that system, getting just the press in place at the maximum speed it could be without needing too much stress. Having it smash some new copper plates, which allowed me to replace the pipes that I had used to be able to craft an engine. Once I had that, I ran back over to the ship, breaking down a few of the other blocks that were there, throwing it in, throwing some fuel in, and now we're moving.
You know what? That's a decent speed. That's a pretty decent speed. We can add more engines to make it faster, but this feels comparable to a rowboat, speed-wise. And look at how much bigger it is. Look at how much that we actually have storage on here, 4 barrels worth. So there's basically 2 double chests worth of storage, all neatly categorized. I think this is fine. We'll take that out though. We'll put it right next to it, so that way the fuel stays there. We have a power boat. We have a speedboat. Oh, I'm so excited. 20 days in and we have a boat finally. It's worth it though. Now we need to just go disassemble a few ships for parts so we can have a really nice looking base.
The next day, I took my ship out on its proper first powered maiden voyage, checking out on the nearby villager fleet and realizing I had gotten lucky with the tornado strike.
Oh, interesting. Why is this partially destroyed?
But now that I had maneuverability and storage space, I went through checking through all of the barrels that were around here to collect all of the remaining food. Not all of the boats had been fully stripped of their bones by whatever storm had rolled through here, so most of them were in pretty good state, specifically the loot, which is nice. I did remember to grab the luck potion from the brewing stand though, after looting about 10 barrels, so it wasn't fully effective, but it definitely made a difference in the remaining barrels that I checked out for the remainder of the ship, getting me more gold, more iron, and a lot better and higher quality foods. I'm stashing everything in my ship's cargo hold, and looking around is going well. So after finishing looting the villager fleet, making sure to try to keep everything organized as into like a food chest, a resources chest, and then just treasure off to one corner, I sailed over towards a pirate ship that was nearby. This is one of the ones that had the self-destruct buttons lined up across most of its sides, so I backed the ship up, approaching and boarding as a solo, keeping my boat safely away from any potential explosions and going in with an axe so that I'm not worried about doing damage with my bow setting off any of the traps here. I took a quick nap on the ship and then returned back to the deck the following day, where with some sunlight preventing the natural mob spawning that was occurring on the boat, making it unmanageable, I was able to continue fighting my way around, taking out one skeleton at a time, some at range, some by getting in close. When I would get down to each individual deck, the first thing I would do is just run as fast as I could, dodging bullets wherever I could, to disarm and defuse all of the TNT that is laced all around here. Because all it takes is one skeleton to spawn with a flame enchanted bow, and this whole thing's going up with me on board. Once I cleared each floor, it's trying to find the individual spawners so that I can break those, finding the loot chests hidden all around. Good thing I had seen one of these ships exploded, so I knew where the secret chests were, clearing out everything and moving my ship in a little bit closer once I knew everything was safe. From there, I did a lot of transferring of all of the loot from one place to another, also making sure to go and check out some of the upper spawners where phantoms were set to spawn if I had been a little less careful.
Was that a phantom spawner? Oh, that could have been bad.
But I'm also trying to take a lot of the more expensive wood supplies from around this ship, collecting them so that I could use them to build out my oil rig platform. A lot of the slabs, the trapdoors, the sandstone are things that I'm not going to see a lot of and or are unnecessarily expensive, which would really slow me down in building out my base if I had to craft them from scratch. So just demolishing one of the masts of this ship, probably saving me 3x the time in actually crafting up the components it's made out of. The next morning, I finished up the demolition of the ship, at least for the more expensive supplies, sailing away from the boat as a storm started to roll in. I wanted to be careful here, making sure to avoid the weather so I didn't have to worry about more tornadoes or lightning strikes potentially burning my boat away. I don't know how a multi-block ship like this would handle a storm. I need to be careful about that. But I sailed my way back towards my pontoon platform, trying to organize everything into the chests, and I already have way more booty than I have space to put it in. So I started smelting up any of the raw supplies so that they could stack with their ingots, trying to take all of the building blocks and categorize them in a way that I could use them to expand out the platform instead of having to worry about just keeping them organized in chests. But I also need just more wood that is compatible with the create mod. So I'm growing out some more azalea, which also turns some of the moss into dirt, which combined with some gravel would allow me to get infinite dirt by turning it into coarse dirt and then hoeing it to make it into regular dirt and then getting more dirt. It's the only way I'm really gonna get farmable dirt land in this world. But as the day was starting to come to a close, the clouds were getting darker and a storm rolled in.
Not good. A storm. Hopefully. Just a regular storm. Feels like a bit more than regular storm. Oh, definitely more than a regular storm. Which way is that going? Oh no. Oh, it's 100% headed straight for my house. Oh no. No, 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 no. No! 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 Oh, it's demolishing the house! No, it's ripping it apart! Oh... Oh, it's getting so wrecked! No! Come on! There's my dog. Puppy, Grunts. Grunts are gonna make it, okay? We're gonna be fine, buddy. It's gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. We'll be fine. Our house, very much not fine. Oh, that's totaled. I really hope that, like, the storage survived and I didn't just lose all of my loot. That would be so upsetting. Puppy, get the skeleton. Puppy, get the skeleton. Get him. Yeah. There's another one. Okay, actually this is a problem. Because I don't know if their hits affect rainwater. I'm fighting skeletons in a tornado. How interesting is this? Oh, I'm descending. I'm descending. No. Nope. Nope. Come on. Nope. Don't hit me. If they hit me, I am in so much trouble. Oh, it's a wreck. Oh, it's totally wrecked. Well, I guess the good news is... Oh no, it totally just broke the chests. No! Oh no, 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 no. Okay, we have to save everything quickly. Super quickly. I'm so sorry. Any sense of organization is now gone. It's just about saving the stuff. Oh. Giant squid over there. Leave me alone.
So this place is totaled. Like 80% of the blocks that actually constructed the platform or the pontoons are just gone. A lot of the items are just scattered around. Thankfully, I was able to get a good chunk of them into chests. I'm not gonna lie, I spent probably the first bit of the day just standing here in shock, just trying to think, what do I do? What do I do with all of this? Where do I go from here, considering my base is fully and utterly destroyed? I've never had something like this happen to me in 100 Days Adventure, so I figured, let's just rebuild. Let's reset a little bit, break down the blocks that were still existing, that are still valuable, figure out what I have, and get it down into a place where it could be safe. So I dove down underwater into that cave that I had set up and built out as a little forward mining post. And I figured that's going to turn into kind of like a seed vault in a sense, where I'm going to have to store a lot of my supplies to be able to make sure that they're going to be able to stay safe until I can find a way to deal with the storm. This took a couple trips, and it took basically the other half of the day, filling my inventory, collecting any valuable blocks, including the moss, which I was very happy to see survived, and then diving my way underwater, making barrels and just trying to keep things categorized and organized while safely stored underwater, hoping I had gone deep enough, and having to rush a little bit because a second tornado was headed my way. The following morning, with that storm just over the horizon, I'm heading back up to the surface, trying to stay in the water so I won't get sucked away, to collect the final bits of resources as well as any valuable blocks. I'm basically going up, filling my pockets, diving underwater, and then storing everything off, trying to wait out this storm. While I was down here, I did make sure to get organized, having things categorized and labeled, expanding out the storm bunker, having to block off the water every time I dig just one block in the wrong direction, throwing down multiple rows of barrels and decorating the walls with just some simple spruce trim so that it would be livable and not just a hole in the ground, even though it's just kind of a hole in the ground. But by the time night had fallen, the storm had passed, so I was able to safely sleep on the ship up on the surface. And when I went sailing out in the morning, I found out that others had survived.
Wolf! My wolf! It's alive! Okay, wait for the next wave. Push, 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 push. Wolf, you survived! Yeah, you made it! Buddy! I didn't think you were gonna make it.
So with my first mate now safely on board, I headed north to take on the pirate ship that was closest to me, fighting off all of the zombies that were around here, and then once I let the boss out of the back cabin, using bombs and my flintlock pistol to be able to shoot them from a distance, not realizing that I also had my IRL organization to deal with.
Okay, my hard drive filled up again. I hadn't deleted all the old footage. Ah! Okay, PNG animation time. I killed the last zombie. I killed the boss. I went down to the bottom of the ocean. I killed the skeleton with the anchor on his back. I got the key. And I got the blue gem and a bunch of other stuff. And I just looted all of the barrels on the bottom here. And all of the other things. And all the stuff. I've opened all the I've done all the things. Oh, I look so dumb right now. Let's go up here. Is there more stuff up here? There is. Neat. You see me looting things. Oh, there's still a guy. There's still a dude here. Hello, dude friend. Don't need that. Friend, golden skull. Somebody lost their head. Obtain a golden skull. Sick. All right, let's put all of this in here. That's awesome. That's that blue gem. More TNT. I think that's it. Paper can go there, I guess, too. And then this is like blarg. And then bone. And then the books. There, wait. Did I loot these? I didn't. Yes. Okay. Wait, what is this? A scimitar. Wait, why is my cape on my... Yeah, why is my cape on my chest? Medium speed. 4.5 damage. Interesting. I mean, right now the axes make sense with the bandana of rage and the warrior boots.
But with the treasure safely collected, I headed back home, storing a lot of it in the underwater bunker until I can do something about the weather. And then it was time to figure out how to do something about the weather.
Weather items. To do that, I need that. To do that, I need crystals. I can either haunt or go kill some guardians. Whatever the heck that thing is. That's terrifying. Guardians would be easy. Need to find some guardians. Where's an ocean monument?
So I went off in search of some guardians, passing by a galleon that was on fire, potentially from a lightning strike, which is a little bit concerning. Just heading out to explore the oceans, trying to find some of the upgraded ocean monuments that exist here so I could go fight some guardians. I did find a little bit of sand along the way that was close enough to the surface that harvesting it would be not too problematic, spending time collecting that and a whole bunch of dirt, which will be useful for future farming. And the search for monuments is kind of limited by my ability to render this world. The physics mod is a taxing one, but honestly, without it, it would be perfectly flat and it wouldn't look great. I did find a pretty decent sized sunken town with all of these green bricks and prismarine lanterns sticking around with a little bit of a magma ravine, which was useful for taking a breath underwater. There were some loot chests filled inside of that pink clay that I had found a few other times, some squids that I was very concerned would try to gobble me up, so I'm giving them pretty good distance, dealing with mainly the drowned, especially the ones hurling tridents at me, being a bit of a nuisance. And my armor's not looking great. It's really lasted me from day one in this world. I found it about, 10 days in? So it's taking a bit of a beating and it's gonna need an upgrade. Thankfully, the diamonds that I'm finding here are definitely gonna make that easier. But my main problem is just keeping oxygen in my lungs while underwater. And then I found something that can help with that.
Oh, it's a turtle shell. I can breathe underwater now. Bad omen by pillagers. What does this say? What does this say? This is not lore, I promise. Oh, and I got quartz somehow. Being sick. And a god apple. I get the feeling there's something right here. Cause there is. Oh, that's block of diamonds. Heck yeah.
I checked out a few more of the houses, looting all of the chests, fighting any drowned I saw trying to pick up an additional trident or one with a bit more durability, but lucking out on the drops on that. There was this one room that looked kind of like an end portal that had a lot of pearls and enchanted books, which I'm definitely going to take, heading up to the surface and taking a quick nap in the open air. The following morning, I banked all of the resources on the boat while figuring out exactly how the turtle's helmet works. It's not infinite durability like it is in vanilla. Instead, it naturally degrades over time, meaning that this isn't just a solving everything button for the entire 100 days. With mending, unbreaking, or a replacement enchantment, I can make this last a lot longer, but there's other ways to get scuba gear as well. So I'm gonna have to explore my options and which direction I wanna take to be able to persist underwater. But this helmet did break right as I finished looting the town. So I feel like it served its purpose. It let me get all of the treasure here, and now I know to keep an eye out for other structures that look like this in the future.
Whoa! Team Rocket's blasting off again! That whale had no chill.
After watching a squid enter low Earth orbit, I did head over towards a nearby villager fleet, accidentally picking up a stowaway while seeing a ocean monument on my map. I dislodged them from my boat gently, graciously, on a piece of driftwood nearby, checking around all of my barrels for supplies before starting to sail away a little bit and checking out some of the other ships here to better prepare myself for the ocean monument underground. I saw a ruined portal nearby, and it's time for everybody's favorite bit. Looting the chest before heading back north, and I am very glad I didn't try to take on the monument right away.
Oh, no. No. Okay. The ocean's very mad. I don't like that that's following me.
I immediately sailed for the first structure I could find that would get me out of the water, because I don't know how well the ship will actually protect me. Jumping onto a galleon nearby and just seeing the lights under the surface.
Okay. Oh boy. I need to save my dog. Teleport up here, teleport up here. Yes. Stay here for now, okay? What is that giant purple thing? I'm gonna give you all some spoilers, all. I don't know what that is, and I did not tell that to spawn. I'm genuinely afraid. Because that is unknown territory, so whoop! We're just gonna pretend. We're just gonna sit here and pretend that doesn't exist. I could try to blow it up. But then again, it's like on the ship. Nope. No, we stay right here.
And if that wasn't bad enough, a storm started to roll in. And if a tornado pulled me off of my perch right now, I'm as good as dead. So I worked my way underneath to the lower decks of the ship, just high enough that I can't be attacked by what's in the water, and just low enough, hopefully, to be able to avoid the wind.
Okay, thankfully the tornado is past. I think. Maybe it sucked up all the monsters and it is about to be sunrise. Oh yeah, it's sucking up all the monsters for sure. If we were to end up in that, we are almost certainly dead. Oh, this is a problem. Doggy, you survived. Just keep going that way, please. Okay, one of those things is not a problem. Or two. I have to get away from that purple thing. It looks like we can just barely outswim them.
So with the tiniest bit of a speed advantage, just barely being able to outpace the giant anglerfish that were chasing me, I made my way back towards my ruined above water platform, swimming down into the underwater bunker to drop off all of the resources and reassess where I was towards my goal about not having to worry about storms in the future. And once all the valuables were banked, it's time to go caving. We need to go underground, both to find a little bit more diamonds and a little bit more redstone so we could go ahead and craft up the actual weather control devices. But the heart of diamond, the rarest thing for weather control, can only be found in the deepest, darkest places of this world. So I used the flooded caves to get as low as I possibly could, basically swimming from magma block to magma block so I'd be able to breathe, eventually digging into a large, expansive underwater cave network. This is already pretty low. This is down at the deep slate level, well into the negatives, which means we have a lot of mobs spawning because there's not a lot of land for them to spawn otherwise, which makes this place pretty dangerous. I'm mining up all of the gold that I'm seeing so that I can get what I need. Also trying to find any redstone and using water to enable descent to even lower levels. And I'm looking for this friend right here. In order to get a heart of diamond, I need to kill them. The only problem is they really don't like being killed. So I picked up a few more diamonds while waiting for another mob to spawn. They're passive. They're just extremely tricky to get close enough to. And they only spawn where other dangers lie.
Holy crap. Holy crappers. That was almost really bad.
Having a very close call with that skeleton adventurer, I made a little 1x1 hole that I was able to use my axe to kill them from a distance, avoiding any additional shots. They did drop a really cool helmet, which increases my luck by 1, which when combined with a luck potion would mean the loot that I'm getting from any structure is going to be extremely high quality. But as the storm continued to rage up on the surface, I am precariously bridging over the top of this cave, trying to get to another little ledge where the golems are spawning. The skeletons are probably the thing I'm most scared of. One shot from them can send me falling off of this to my near certain death. So I have to take those all out while trying to be quiet enough that the golems will get close enough to me that I can actually swing to take them out as well. It's kind of like herding cats, if the cats can just vanish and you need to kill the cats instead of making friends with them. And like I said, these caves are dangerous. There's no land for mobs to spawn, so even some vanilla creepers, they're always coming up in pairs. But I worked my way through a lot of these tunnels, digging out into an area where the cave was once again flooded, which is good for finding diamonds or other supplies that don't really spawn exposed to air as much, but I'm really looking for the golem. I need that heart of diamond if I'm ever going to exist in anything that's going to be up on the surface that isn't just going to get taken away by tornadoes constantly. And I'm doing really good at finding diamonds, but not hearts of diamonds. And while most of the mobs are trying to kill me down here, every now and then one of them will be helpful. But getting jumped by multiple skeletons when I'm basically in unenchanted iron is actually pretty dangerous. And even just a regular zombie or two, if they're spawn holding a weapon, can probably kill me in a few hits. So I have to stay on my toes. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna back away from challenges though, seeing a kind of trial spawner light right here, which just spawns a ton of zombies. But whenever I see a golem, I kind of drop everything and just try to lure them over with diamonds.
Come here, friend. Come here, friend. Just a little closer. Come here. Yeah. Dang it! How do I make this thing come? Now.
And this Sisyphusian journey of trying to get a heart of diamond continued into day 32, running laps around this cave system that you've seen now here, dealing with whatever creepers or hostile mobs would spawn, and then running from end to end. Every now and then finding another vein of diamond or another bit of ore that I hadn't collected on the previous pass. Every now and then seeing more of those golems and having them disappear the second I get even remotely too close.
Oh, come on. How am I supposed to tame you if you keep disappearing? Now I'm just mad. Come back up to the surface. Figure this out later.
It eventually got to the point where, look, I want to control the weather and all. I want the powers of Storm. She's an Omega level threat, but I want to also have a good video, and spending 6 days down in the cave here continuously failing at killing these golems is annoying for me, which means it's probably not fun to watch. Then again, y'all love watching me suffer. So I ran back over to the underwater bunker, just dropping off a ton of supplies, mainly to empty out my inventory as well, as I had been very lucky at collecting everything else except the one item that I was actually down there for. But just to mix things up, the following day, I sailed over to another of the nearby structures, immediately finding the loot chest at the very top and throwing on my new explorer's hat to give myself luck for any additional barrels that I would open. This place was full of drowned spawners that took quite a bit of work to actually break down. As being underwater slows down your mining speed, I'm working with only an unenchanted pickaxe at this point, so it's taking a full mob cycle or two, and me trying to commit to the bit had me go down to 1.5 hearts a couple times. But I was working my way through the actual columns and coliseums of this area. Without mining fatigue, I can mine into the wall and then use a bucket to be able to make myself a little bit of an air pocket, so I don't need to worry as much about breathing as I have in some of the other underwater structures, but it is somewhat empty, primarily focused on the spawners themselves and the few loot barrels that I had actually opened right at the beginning of challenging this structure. But then again, I want to make sure that I'm well over level 30 so that I'd be able to get future enchantments enchantments once I can get the enchanting table set up, considering I have enough obsidian and diamond right now to be able to make that once I can safely make a base. But I'm using the ravine to breathe, or the surface, eventually breaking down all of the spawners and then turning back to head back towards home, sleeping on the ship very quickly before returning to my ruined structure and the bunker underneath to drop off all of the resources I had just collected. And look, I might not have the heart of diamond just yet, but I can make progress on some of the other things that I need in order to get ready for the actual weather machine. It worked for doing that for the engine, so let's just be proactive here. I started smelting up a lot of the stone to get smooth stone, making some of the redstone torches, and using prismarine crystals and some of the copper blocks that I collected from the galleon, scraping off all the oxidation from those so they'd be able to be used for crafting. From there, I used some of the prismarine crystals that I collected from breaking all of these sea lanterns, which enabled me to make the weather items, which are useful for crafting the actual weather controller a little bit later. I only had enough for one of the two, and then I had to basically go through the whole process again, making all of the randomizers, the redstone blocks, and throwing the other tornado item in the side. And now I'm only one item short.
Just get that heart, and we got it.
So I spent some time recrafting and repairing my diamond gear, basically just combining axes, and I'm not quite ready to head back down into the caves just yet, so I jumped on my ship, sailing in a southwesterly direction just to explore more of the ocean around my space. I passed by some small islands, but remember, land is banned. Pulling up on a few of the yachts that were around here, breaking down the barrels as well as the fences and wooden components that I'd be able to use for the future build for the actual base. I did start getting chased by a storm, which was a little bit concerning. Thankfully though, my ship was just fast enough that I was able to sail out of the suck zone, getting to a spot where it was just a little bit rainy and then eventually making it to a rainbow.
We're just gonna sail through it and hope for the best.
The following day, I sailed up to another villager fleet that was close by to another ocean monument temple. Checking out the chests here, wearing my lucky hat, so I'm getting higher quality stuff, including this warrior's helmet. But you can actually tell the difference of having loot by just how many slots of these chests are filled. I'm getting a ton more when it comes to the food and supplies, and once I downed the luck potion from this fleet to level up to 2 levels of luck, it gets even better. Because it's also the fact that the gear that's spawning in here is now enchanted. So I'm getting things like enchanted iron swords, other gear, other useful things, banking a lot of it before heading down into the ship to get a whole host of treasure.
Globes! Yes, finally. I've been wanting globes for some time. And discs, multiple discs, pants, food. Nope, 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 nope. No, come on, I have luck. No!
Suck zone.
No! I don't want to lose my luck potion. Time. Ah, it was going so well. Oh, this is gonna obliterate this village. Put me down, put me down, put me down, put me down, put me down. No, come on. I was out. Oh, no.
And being up here, being out of cover, surrounded by guardians who can kill me with laser beams while I'm stuck with bows that go flying in the wind, it's actually an extremely dangerous situation. Clearing out the few that were already up here, that's fine. But if another round gets sucked up with another pass over the structure, I'm in really bad shape. Thankfully, I was able to dive down out of the tornado into the water, immediately getting attacked by a drowned riding a scullywog, who I was able to take out. Then I'm struggling about trying to manage my breath while staying deep enough that I'm not going to get picked up by the tornado again. I headed back towards the villager fleet just as the tornado started to move out of the area where it could affect me, looting the final couple chests just as the sun rose. Come the morning, I finished looting the remainder of the boat, mainly focusing on upping my food supplies and stores. And I know some of you are going to get upset at this, but at this point, I'm not taking every item. My inventory space is starting to get limited in my little underwater bunker, which means that I can't afford to take everything until I can live on the surface and make more space for more storage. I did take a little snapshot of the fleet with a map before marking the location and heading back home, checking out the very sliced off top of a monument nearby and realizing I don't really want to take that on until I have protection enchants to make it a little bit more livable. On the way home, I saw my very destroyed platform off in the distance. It's kind of a shell of what I had in my head as far as the proper platform I wanted to live on. I organized a few of the resources here that are more valuable taken out and about in the world, like armor or explosives, heading down into the underwater area, and just like I said, I'm running out of storage space here, barely being able to categorize everything into its proper blocks. I threw down the globe, getting one of my favorite achievements.
There's my advancement. I love globe. Globe.
Before condensing down whatever food or other blocks that I could just to make a few extra slots of inventory space to be able to get things in a good state. Which means I yearn for the mind. It's time to go back underwater and back underground, as I desperately need that heart of diamond if I want to make the weather control device so I can have a base on the surface, which is where I want to live. Now, there's some decent mobs around here, and those warrior chest plates apparently do damage with bows, as I was at half health from like one shot. Making my way down to the very bottom, being attacked by another of those adventurer skeletons who blind me unexpectedly. There's also quite a few zombies that I need to clear out around this area, mainly because I hadn't been here yet, just trying to chase down a golem for their heart. Now, it was a little ominous up on the surface, hearing just thunder and lightning, reminding me of why I'm actually down here in the first place looking for this resource, but then a harvest moon rose, which, if I had a space to do actual farming and gardening, would increase my crop yields. But no, I'm down in the caves, throwing bombs at golems. Wait, I can throw bombs at golems?
Got ya. Finally. Yes! Yes! All you needed was bombs.
You know what? That might have been the most American solution I've ever had to any of the problems, which, by the way, go check out the Ultimate Survival Adventure. USA, USA, USA. But I made my way back up, and instead of swimming underwater towards my bunker, I found a ravine which would allow me to access the surface and check on the storm that was nearby. Thankfully, it was mild, so I headed down into the bunker, threw the Heart of Diamond into where it will go once I craft things, and took a quick nap to celebrate. Day 38, I made myself the weather deflector, headed up to the surface, and it's time for a little bit of demolition. With the original circular platform now removed, I can actually get started on what I'm trying to make. I'm gonna go for a square build because that's what a real life oil rig looks like. And I'm gonna make it primarily out of wood because lightning strikes be damned. But I want this whole thing to feel like a bunch of intertwining, overlapping, underlaid, kind of MC Escher-like multiple staircases and platforms all over and through each other to give that kind of claustrophobic feel to what is a wide open in every direction space here on the ocean. I'm using stone as some of the accents for the walls, actually giving me some grays against all of the tans and beiges that I get from building mainly with dark oak, which is something that I don't normally build with, but it is far most common in my supplies currently, mainly because all of the galleons seem to be primarily built out of that. I set up a few levels of what will be kind of the main tower that I will ascend and descend from. I'm going to try to keep things feeling somewhat tight and claustrophobic, and I started expanding out the uppermost platform, as that's going to have a lot of the surface area that I'm going to be living on up above the water. Yes, it's floating up there right now, but we'll get to the supports. Don't worry, we totally will get to the supports. But I have the idea for kind of multiple levels here, and I want the weather sensor to be in kind of this access level, feeling like it's inside of the tunnels or the engine or the bowel of this overall area instead of up easily and accessible in the living quarters. But building even just that little bit of a home took almost all of the wood supplies that I had. So I sailed my way over towards the galleon that had been partially demolished by the storm and had served as my first little respite and home off of the water, and started demolishing even more of the space, really breaking apart the bow of the ship that was already partially deconstructed from the tornado, remembering, oh yeah, my dog is here. Moving them onto the boat and transporting both my friend and my building supplies over towards my new home. I tried pushing the dog onto the platform, accidentally getting them stuck inside the block, which I was able to thankfully break before they died, relying on dog teleporting mechanics to get them up to the very top of the overall structure.
Puppy, you're safe now. Okay, all right. Boss is here at the base. We're good to go.
And after a quick nap on the ship, we're continuing construction. I am having to convert a lot of the dark oak that I harvested into slabs, which I'm using to make blocks go 3 times as far. And I'm going pretty big with the uppermost platform, but it is going to require multiple levels. I also started making some supports that, while I didn't get them all the way down to the absolute ocean floor, are at least deep enough under the water where it looks like the thing is supported as long as you're coming in from a distance, as shaders make the surface somewhat more opaque than normal. And to really go with this idea of kind of like an engineering level, I built a few single plank scaffoldings that I supported and suspended from the upper living quarter platform that I'm actually going to be doing a majority of my work on, and set that up to go off of the shelf like little mid area where I had the weather sensor. The idea also is to use create a lot in this structure, which means there will be a lot of mechanisms and moving parts, and having this small little walkway would allow me to access those from underneath and actually serve a practical purpose. And on day the meaning of life, the universe, and everything, I got the final couple supports in place and then went down to grab a few of those create supplies that I can start working on it. First things first was making a large water wheel, just so the scale of my power generation will more closely match the scale of the overall base, figuring out where I wanted to put it and getting it actually out and into the water, suspended from what's going to look like a little bit of a trellis that's going to come from the uppermost area to get everything going. And it was here that I had my first interaction between the weather deflector and weather itself.
Oh, that's wicked. It does redirect it. Like, it's just barely enough where I could get pulled. That looks so cool. That looks so cool. We are tornado proof. This is huge. We can actually have a base that's like, I mean, God, that storm is loud, but we have a base. We're safe.
And I will say, seeing a tornado just yeet itself away from you because you happen to have a really glowy block, that is a visual I've never seen in Minecraft before, and honestly, I'm super hyped to see again. This means that the base that I'm building here, the power that I'm generating down here with the water wheel, is something that will now exist in this world and doesn't have to worry about natural disasters, as long as I can keep that block safe. Which is why I think having it more centrally inside the overall structure is a good idea, and it allows me to continue building things out and use the space around it for all of the create blocks to kind of really actually put this to the test. I'm relying on a lot of belts to transfer the power up to the uppermost platform where I'm going to be doing the work, but even right now, this takes my mess of create gears that I normally make that's in the middle of the base and gives it actual purpose and has it be an aesthetic element to the build. The bottom half of the structure is where all of the work happens, the engines, the turbines, the things that make an oil platform work. That's where you'd expect to see a bunch of crushing gears and tight quarters. Up at the top is where you see the actual work getting done, the final terminals, the supplies. And running a giant pipe from the very top of that all the way down and into the water, what could be more like an oil rig than that? Now, I did overstress the system by hooking up both the pump and the press, and I'm gonna have to expand out the water wheels to be able to make both of those run at once. So right now, I just kind of disconnected one of the pumps, focusing on just getting water up to the surface. I tried doing a couple gear interchanges, but it wasn't really working, so instead I focused my attention down at the bottom, getting the pipe down into the water so that water would actually pump up to the top level.
All right, we got water coming up to the top. That's the most important thing right now.
I was able to get the spout in place, even though it's not actually connected right now, but at least aesthetically, it looks like everything is in a good spot. Then focusing and turning my attention to the railings of the platform so that any potential slight drag of wind from a nearby location can't pull you off of the platform and into the water, especially if there's dangerous mobs waiting for me down there. After that, I went down to the underwater bunker, grabbing a lot of the sandstone and the work blocks, the things that are going to make this feel like an actual home instead of just a cube on the water, setting a bunch of trapdoors in place, utilizing ropes to be able to make areas to vertically ascend and descend, and just relying on a lot of the modded blocks to really sell this concept of this oil platform, this kind of steampunk oil platform in the middle of an endless ocean. I also wanted to get a little bit of shelter from the rain that was still affecting me, even if the weather deflector is really only keeping the heavier storms away, using a lot of the sandstone to build up the uppermost platform and structure that I'm going to call home. And okay, we have a lot of building. We're still working our way through here. Day 44, I'm doing a lot of decorating, trying to get an overall structure of just what the house is going to look like. I have very limited sandstone that I can actually use to do the building, so I wasn't able to get it all done. Instead, having a bit of a shell and then focusing on some general clutter on the upper platform to work with the idea of this being a working space. Putting down a lot of the pistons, brewing stands, some solar panels, just anything that I can put anywhere which will look like it belongs. I then started thinking about what the next platform up would look like, even though I'm not actually ready to build that yet, and focused then on a platform lower down as well to be able to make a bit of a farming situation. Making a circular platform mostly of dirt, ringed by some oak slabs, and then using the spruce trapdoors to cover up the bottom of the dirt so it's not exposed and actually makes sense where it is. Now, I know you can't really grow crops in salt water, so it's not exactly one-to-one, but Minecraft doesn't have any concept of salinity, at least not yet. Somebody find me a mod that does that. That'll be cool. Day 45, it's time to actually start moving things in. I have a lot of barrels up here that I was already just dumping blocks into manually and just kind of willy-nilly as part of the construction process. But I started working on some copper accents so that I could get the home to be a little bit taller, moving in some chests into that central building, but lower down, as the cargo space would be below where we would actually live and the living quarters. Once I got the chests all in, I tried to break them up from wooden blocks to non-wooden blocks to a bunch of create stuff. Breaking the barrels in the underwater bunker, filling my inventory, swimming up, and then dropping everything and trying to organize it into one of the chests on the surface. I also took some of the more decorative blocks like the banners, which look awesome in the physics mod, placing them around just to really add some additional detail and life and movement to the structure. And right as the day started to come to an end, the farm/plants chest was one of the last ones I was going to move. Instead of just putting all of that into a barrel, I actually put the effort in to get that all planted so I could start working on some of my initial crops so I'd have a sustainable food source here in the base. I did a little bit more gardening and farming on the morning of day 46, getting at least a few plants of each of the major crops planted so that I could focus on better food supplies in the second half of this challenge. But we've been building for about 6 days straight. It's time to mix it up a little bit and go out and go sailing.
Honestly, that's looking I mean, all the create stuff disappears way too soon, but that's looking kind of cool. I think as I get that more set up, that's gonna look awesome. Use like some cranes, a cage around the spots, like another little platform. Ooh, I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot.
And leaving this base, I finally have a landmark I'm proud of. But I need more supplies, and I don't want to just do building for 20 days straight. So let's continue going back and forth. It's time for more piracy. I sailed over towards another nearby villager fleet, one that I had not visited yet, and kind of standard operating procedure, luck potion on board, lucky hat on. I'm going in and checking out all of the chests here, getting a whole bunch of food, some enchanted leather armor, some of it with good enchants that would actually be useful down the road. But most of the villagers here were missing. Kinda mysteriously. I'm assuming that it was potentially a tornado that had come and taken them away, with only the ones on the main central ship, especially those on the lower deck, being the ones that were still around. But there was a lectern here, and well, I needed some help.
Quick charge. No. You.
As the harvest moon rose and we approached into the hours that villagers wouldn't do work, I slept on the ship here before continuing to lure additional villagers into semi-voluntary employment. I can also make a forestry table, which would allow me to make a villager who would sell me logs. And wood is extremely hard to come by in this world, so having a bosun that I can basically buy supplies off of to build out both my base as well as my boat, and that's a lot of bees back to back. That was actually my first trade in this world. And they did pretty okay. They sold 4 out of the main 6 vanilla logs, which is more than enough to get them down into the lower deck, trapped forever for future employment. After that, I continued rolling a lectern to get a protection 4 book from one of the villagers, which would allow me to stay a little bit more alive. But for some reason, the lectern was actually working for multiple villagers at once, so I continued re-rolling, getting mending for only 13 emeralds, which was a steal.
100% worth it. 100% worth it. This is a heck of a shopping spree. This is all of my emeralds, but it is so worth it.
So now with a whole lot of magic on board, I banked the books into my boat and then started sailing back towards home, enjoying the silhouette of the structure against the just fog from the distance and dealing with the fact that the gears pop in a little bit too late, but still, it actually works pretty nicely. I grabbed a lot of the worker blocks from the village that wasn't needed anymore, bringing a lot of them back over towards home and dropping and categorizing off all of the food into another chest until I can build up a proper galley system. From there, I needed to bank off the armors that I had been collecting, and moving everything into its own individual barrel and its own proper place takes a little bit of time. I rested up in my hut at the top of the structure before starting to think that I'm going to need to head out even further pretty soon, as I've looted almost every POI near my home, and that's going to require a second engine to be able to move twice as fast. Luckily, I have a lot of the iron already down in my lower chests, including all of the redstone, and that's about half of the problem already. There's already a create setup which I have and I can use, so I smashed up a few copper plates and a few iron plates to be able to make pipes and the fan respectively. The last thing I needed to make was the bellows, but I've been collecting rotten flesh for some time now, and I was able to smelt up just a few pieces, and wood is at more of a surplus now, so making the bellows is relatively easy, and getting a second engine for the ship followed shortly after. After that, I took a lot of the diamonds that I had been collecting and worked on upgrading all of my armor to diamond tier. I didn't have any enchants anymore. The armor that was enchanted had either broken or was kind of falling behind by just being iron. So it's more valuable to just have the base level enchants here, especially when I have a proper enchanting setup on my short-term to-do list. The boat was starting to list a little from the second engine being put in place, so I threw a few more floaters down, and while it's still back heavy and it now requires twice as much fuel as it used to, it does go significantly faster than when it only had one engine on board. So I started sailing off to some of the further out POIs that I had yet to fully loot, almost getting hit by lightning on the way. I passed by a few other ships and structures that I had not noticed on my first venture out in this direction, picking up a flying fish who just flopped onto the deck at one point. But I sailed over towards another villager fleet, and SOP in place, looted all of the barrels in the bottom of their house, grabbing a whole bunch more emeralds and supplies, which are going to be useful for further trading with my villagers, as I don't really have a good way to generate money. Instead, just kind of acquiring money is basically my business strategy. But looting the fleet with luck is extremely profitable. Even if it's just for simple stuff like food, it's definitely worthwhile. I ended up with almost a full stack of emeralds just from this one structure with multiple lucks on board, but that wasn't what I was most excited about.
Ooh, it's actually nice. We'll take that.
Getting some enchanted tools is definitely good, and it did remind me that I needed to think about enchanting down the road, as I'm already well over level 30 and I have a decent bit of supplies. There's also a nearby abandoned pillager galleon right next to this fleet, so I was able to grab even more emeralds out of the barrels here, re-upping on my luck potion and actually ending up with some golden apples from my trouble. There's also a ton of regular ungolden apples, which I'm getting a ton of gold, so I can work on a lot of healing supplies reorganize, grabbing the food and TNT to use as future weapons for future combat scenarios. But as I was starting to sail away from here, a storm had chased me, a little bit upset that it couldn't get me at my home.
Giving it all she's got, Captain. Ooh, that was almost really bad. We almost ended up in the sky again.
But successfully dodging that, I had a quick nap on the boat, and on day 50, the halfway point of this challenge, I'm diving underwater to take on another one of these sunken pillager towers. This time, being a lot more efficient with my door placement, being able to go from one spawner to the next before they spawned in too many drowned, being able to take a good portion of that structure out without as much of a struggle. And I still had my luck helmet on, which meant I was getting a lot more diamonds and a lot more redstone from here, which is good. It recoups everything I had used to build the second engine, as well as enabled me to further make additional armor and weapons once my current would take a little bit too much damage. I spent a little bit of time farming drowned, just trying to pick up another trident, but unfortunately did not get lucky on the drops, having to spend time reorganizing all of the inventories around here, as both the food and the treasure chests are overflowing at this point already. I started working on heading back towards my home waypoint, making just a slightly different line along the ocean, which allowed me to sail over another one of those sunken neighborhoods, fighting a whole lot of drowned around here, but picking up another turtle helmet and then a second from another mirrored structure relatively close by. The loot in the chest was pretty nice too, a lot of emeralds around here. It definitely seems like it's pulling from a pillager-centric loot pool, and that kind of Bad Omen ASCII art book is a bit of a dead giveaway. But I'm fighting drowns throughout the day, really enjoying using this pirate saber that I had that I collected from one of the different pirate ships that I had fought at previously, going from one house to the next and getting a ton of emeralds in the final house that I looted, which was the portal-looking structure. But as it got late, the glowing eyes underwater was starting to tell me that it might be time to leave.
Oh my god, that I've angered the entire neighborhood. The entire HOA is out to get me.
And I don't know about you, eldritch beings, all sorts of things with teeth, yeah, I'll fight those any day. HOAs? No, those things scare me. The following morning, I checked out some nearby shipwreck, just small pieces of debris that were floating around, before heading over towards the ocean monument to take that on proper. I tried using a turtle helmet to access and mine my way in through the walls, but was jump scared before able to do it.
Oh, well, there goes that idea.
Instead, repositioning my ship that I could approach from one of these small corners near the front entrance, using doors to make air pockets so that my turtle helmet would go a little bit further. I was able to pick up a trident near the entrance of the monument, which is a guaranteed drop in this version of the structure. Swimming through some of the pipes and into the much more complicated and labyrinthian tunnels of this monument compared to a vanilla one. There's also a ton more guardians, so I have to be very careful heading around here, using corners to break lines of sight here and there, putting down the occasional door to refill on my air, but mainly relying on my turtle shell helmet since I can use that to cover a whole lot of distance. But just as I was hanging out in one of these bubble columns, the first turtle helmet broke. With one down, I finally made it towards one of the main chambers, using some wooden blocks to block off a safe little corner before peeking in and trying to see what I'm dealing with here. The Elder Guardian is right here, so I can actually run up and damage them, but I am also taking a lot of hits from all of the laser beams around here, and if I'm not careful and caught in the open too much, I'm gonna die. So I ended up constantly peeking around corners using third person to try to get a view into this chamber for whenever one of the guardians would get close and I could single it out, slaying it and reducing the number of sources of incoming damage. I actually swam back along one of the tunnels near here. There wasn't a loot chest on this side, unfortunately. It was just a bunch of sponges, which I can't get because I still have mining fatigue. But I was able to swim to the channel on the opposite side and also check out the loot in the chest in this room, getting a ton of crystals, a ton of shells that would lead towards the construction of a conduit, but nothing really valuable. For that, I have to kill the guardians. I'm utilizing the doors to block and break line of sight, killing any of these stragglers before deciding let's move forward as well instead of just focusing on this room. I found the second Elder Guardian room relatively quickly, actually. This one, however, is even more open and will be even harder to attempt to take down one of the bosses. So I doubled back towards the chamber that I was in previously, where at least here I had two separate ways where I could kind of duck out of the way, and I'd already established a bunch of small footholds inside of the space, which I could use to block the laser beams, go in, get an attack or two, and then run back out. Along the way here, turtle helmet number 2 broke, and I'm saving my third for when I need to extricate myself from the situation. So now going from door to door is even more important, as I have breathing issues that I need to contend with. I did, after a little while, throw the trident, forgetting I didn't have loyalty.
Well, I've thrown my trident now. That's a problem.
But utilizing the trapdoors and peeking up over them in third person, I was able to catch a few mobs off guard, just slowly whittling my way through an immense amount of enemies. I'm invincible.
The doors shall protect me.
The doors shall be my salvation. The doors give me strength. The doors also help me hide. I continued picking off singular guardians whenever one of them would move away from the pack, but it was extremely precarious. And just moving from one little foothold to another, I can make slow progress here, but it's big enough of a space that some mobs are actually starting to spawn in to fill in behind me. But I did, through just sheer determination, eventually make some progress.
Oh, I killed it. 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 That's the elder. The elder's dead. I got it. I got the elder eye. Yes. I mean, it's a trophy, but it's a nice trophy.
With the elder slain, I swam up to pick up the loot, the elder eye being what it drops, which will be useful for further crafts down the road. But I swam into the main chamber proper, attempting to find my trident, thinking that it would still be waiting for me stuck into the ground, but it had been longer than 5 minutes, and I almost got myself killed trying to search for a weapon which had since despawned. So I figured it's time to double back and head out of here. I'm using the doors to head through some of the initial first tunnels until I got to the point where I'm approaching open water and I'm gonna need to make a break for it. I threw on my turtle helmet and dove through the final couple chambers, moving around the corner of the outside, trying to avoid the sheer number of guardians out of the front of the structure before making it to the surface and taking a quick nap onto the boat. The following morning, I fired up the engines and we're heading out. I pulled up to a pirate ship along the way, mining into the back chamber and saying hello through the window. Mining fatigue was actually a bit of a problem here, so I opened up the door, trying to gain the attention of the anchor skeleton, luring them out into the water while I looted the chests on the upper decks. From there, I took out a few of the mobs, making sure to clear the lower hold of the ship as well, being very careful to not touch any water until I was sure all of the zombies that make that poisonous had been dealt with. I was eventually able to clear the captain out of the back ship using the key to unlock the treasure chests in the basement, checking out the loot from the lower deck as well before sailing off, finding one of those zombie pirates just chilling in the middle of the ocean and running them over with my ship. Along the way back home, I pulled up to a sister ship to the one I had just conquered, this time being able to break the window at the back of the boat, and I received one of the rarer drops from inside the treasure chest.
Yo, I got a totem.
With a totem on board now and a little bit of an insurance policy from an accidental burst of damage, I continued and finished clearing out the ship, smashing some zombies into the actual ship itself to kill them with suffocation damage, marking another underwater town that I had seen while sailing back towards home.
Oh, are you kidding? There's a monument so much closer. We had to sail so Oh, it was just outside of render distance. No way. Yep, there it is. It's right there.
Hey, that's the thing with render distance. Every now and then, you could just miss something so close to home, but it leads to a good adventure heading out into the ocean and venturing further and further away, so I'm kind of here for it, even if in the moment I sounded a little frustrated. The following morning, I looted the chest on that yacht, having a whole lot of rotten flesh being thrown my way, and all of the pirates swimming through the ocean to board the boat that I was standing on and kind of abandoning their own. I was able to clear out all of the mobs without taking any of the Curse of the Sea damage, making my way forward, realizing that the front of their ship was cut off, which makes for a really easy way for them to all start swimming over towards me. I mainly relied on my flintlock pistol to take out the zombies that were in the water, because they had the whole instant instant death mechanic, dealing with the skeleton with the anchor on his back that, believe it or not, sinks to the bottom of the ocean without warning. There's also a few tiny little ghosts around, which were a bit of a problem, but the big zombie captain that jump scared me was the biggest threat by far.
Holy, half my health.
The thing is, a pistol can solve a lot of conversations, especially when the zombies are only bringing swords to a gunfight. So I was able to clear through the remainder of them, taking care of the few camping out in the crow's nest, and also beheading the golden skeleton in the cage for a nice shiny trophy. The only problem was, I was cursed and couldn't touch the ocean, so I tried using a fishing rod to recover the item, and it wasn't exactly working. The other problem was, somewhere along the lines, the treasure key had just vanished. I couldn't open the loot chest here. So I looted all of the other barrels, getting all of the food and supplies from the lower deck of the ship before diving underwater, grabbing the golden skull, which had floated up, but trying to turn on hitboxes and seeing where the key had gone to, and I had killed the skeleton far back enough that it had apparently despawned. I swam until I was drowning, actually kind of frustrated, realizing I can break the chest and bring it with me. If nothing else, it'll serve for some really good decoration. Sailing out in the morning before marking the monument that was a lot closer and dealing with another one of these pirate vessels. I did once again end up picking up the Curse of the Ocean, so I have to be very careful to not touch water, dealing with a whole lot of mobs that were coming around, but the thing that concerned me was the weather. A storm was brewing, and considering that could suck me off the boat and then drop me into the ocean, where I would die from touching the water, I didn't want to deal with that. I marked the ship as a priority target, sailing back towards home, finding a villager on a piece of driftwood who was just vibing there, okay? Once home, it's time for everyone's favorite thing, inventory management. Throwing all of the items into their respective chests, storing a lot of the food and plant material out in the barrels closer to those areas, and trying to keep the few chests that I have categorized to their specific class of loot. I actually walked away from this multi-day cruise with quite a bit. You forget, this is actually where we had picked up the mending books some 10 days earlier, so it was a very successful mission going around all of the different parts and kind of touching every game system of the game while exploring some of the different structures that generated here. But I'm already starting to fill barrels. I'm already starting to need to compress down items into ingots or block form, just to make sure everything's gonna fit, including making bags of gunpowder from the individual stacks. But as I slept in my bed for the first time in a while, the following morning it's time to do a little bit more construction and work on another platform. The first one is a sort of nondescript brewing / working platform, which I'm going to use for something a little bit later and expand on, but I made a spiral staircase around one of the legs of the platform, leading up to an upper area that's kind of on par with the catwalks that I had made underneath for all of the create content. But this is going to serve as a space for me to be able to do enchanting, because I need a little bit more real estate for that than anywhere else I've made so far. I took the time to convert a lot of the books that I had been collecting into a bunch of different bookcases, just keeping that in my inventory while making sure to have nice railings of trapdoors so that while it's all these different one wide paths, I'm not going to be falling into the ocean unprovoked. The following morning, I went down into the lower deck area, grabbing some of the books and remaining scraps of supplies that was left in the underwater bunker, finally having enough that I can fully complete this level. I made some nice spruce trapdoor trimming before setting up all of the individual bookcases, going and crafting the enchanting table, throwing that down, and having level 30 enchants now accessible to me. I continued using some of the other blocks that I had been collecting, some shelves that I had made to be able to store some items for decoration, putting railings up along the entire spiral staircase, which took a lot of work, I'm not gonna lie, because just getting them placed in the right place was a little annoying. Making myself a campfire and then trying to see if I could use the pink clay to make bricks, but instead they make black bricks, which are actually green. Please fix your mod. And those can't be used to craft up the cooking pot that I want, so I'm gonna need to come up with a different solution. But I finished the night by making a cutting board, getting that all set up in place, having a quick nap back in my home, and then going back into organization and decoration the following day, putting some iron bar grating around the pipe just to give that a little bit more substance and structure, make it look like it had a little bit more of a nefarious purpose here in the ocean. After that, I headed out in search of good old-fashioned regular clay, finding a small pirate dinghy which I was able to very quickly board and loot, heading over towards another ship that was mainly populated by wandering traders, grabbing a lot of the coal from there so it can fuel my boat going forward. The top of this ocean monument here is actually complete, so the dome is just teasing me that I had somehow missed this so close to my base. Finding another underwater prismarine structure I was able to mine up and grab a whole bunch more nautilus shells and sea pickles from a chest inside. But I headed over towards the closest one of those underwater villages, hoping that maybe somewhere in here was regular clay which I could use to make up the bricks that I needed. I found a whole lot of treasure in a lot of the different blocks, a whole lot of the pink clay, which I couldn't really use, and a whole lot of drowned who really wanted to kill me for just chilling in their town. I sailed away from there in the evening, one of them with a trident having like stuck it in the bottom of my boat and being pulled along with me somehow. That was honestly very funny. They didn't drop the trident when I killed them though. But the following morning, having wasted a little bit of time, unfortunately, I started sailing back towards home, finding another underwater structure right here, checking it out to grab a whole bunch of quartz and an enchanted book, including a Heart of the Sea, which would allow me to complete a conduit going forward. I made a quick pit stop over at this villager fleet, just grabbing a few of the random sporadic blocks that would be useful before making it back to the platform and banking all of my supplies around. I crafted up the conduit now that I had a Heart of the Sea and could do that, making a whole bunch of prismarine so I could get that leveled up. I actually incorporated the conduit into one of the legs of the platform, thinking that it kind of helps it float, and if I never actually complete all of those posts to the surface, it helps it make a little bit more sense. And I was able to get it up to tier 2, but I was a few prismarine blocks short to be able to get the whole conduit up to its max level. That's something I'll have to work on later. Much later, apparently.
Well, I could not have timed that better. Hi there, big boy. How you doing? Hi there, all the big boys. Oh, Nelly. Oh, that's terrifying. Where did I leave the tridents? Oh, okay, yeah, no, I don't know what that big one is, and I'm getting the heck away from the water. Well, it's a good time as any to enchant my armor, I guess. Let's just slowly walk our way around here. I do need to put mending on this. I thought I had also gotten loyalty somewhere. It might be in the basement, which is, some would say, inaccessible at the moment. Oh, and I had treasure down here, and I made another treasure barrel upstairs. I continued working on my enchantments through a good portion of the remainder of the night, ignoring the sheer amount of teeth floating in the water underneath me. I'm about 20-25 blocks up above the surface at this point, so range is my friend, and I don't want to get too close. Once my trident was fully enchanted though, I did kind of take advantage of being able to throw that down and attack all of the mobs down there, having to throw it quite a few times to be able to kill just one of those purple things. What are you? They bleed. We can kill them. I'm not 100% sure what those giant purple manta rays are, but what I am certain of is I don't want to be stuck in the water with any of them because I feel like they're going to kill me in one hit. Now, I'm not going to lie here. The start of day 60, a good portion of day 60 actually, was just let's go ahead and clear all the mobs. I crafted up a bow, which is actually a flintlock pistol, taking my one infinity book that I had found and getting that onto the bow, so I can rely on only one arrow to be able to do a whole bunch of damage here. And with that available to me, I just started literally shooting fish in a barrel.
I do pretty regularly dip into third person to look underneath the platform that I was standing on to see how many mobs still remained, having to regularly jump onto the ship or move from one facet of the base to another, kind of drag and aggro the monsters in a direction where I could actually get an angle to shoot on them and just barely do enough damage to clear the area underneath my base. And that took, like I said, well over half the day, probably. I am very lucky that I had that blood moon happen when I'm here at the oil rig instead of being caught out in the ocean or in open water. Once everything was dead, I swam around collecting a whole bunch of the different monster parts from here, and there's a bunch of different things that I could potentially craft into some really cool armor sets. There's also a few glaring limitations. Oh, this makes some really cool stuff.
That needs netherite that I can't get.
Is there a way to get it?
Netherite coins. That is so sick looking though. That's quite a bit.
This is another one of those mod packs where I'm not going to be going to the nether. I've set this up that you don't need to go to the nether, but it is going to require a deep, and I do mean deep investment into in order to create netherite at the scale that you need it in a way that doesn't relate to going to the nether at all. If you download this mod pack and you make one of those weapons, you craft it legitimately, you post a video for that, I want to see it. I have a prize waiting for you. But I sailed out in my ship, reigniting my search for clay, eventually finding a small patch of it on the top of what looks like it could have been an island if the ground had gotten about 6 or 7 blocks higher. So I was able to dig all of that up, getting the 4 clay balls that I needed, literally just 1 block, but I spent a lot more time just getting some extras just in case before starting to venture out further. Because I figure as long as I'm far enough away, I can go back for better food, but I have a decent bit right now. Let's go fight some more pirates. I cleared out another one of the anchor skeletons, then clearing out everything on the lower decks, ending up with a replacement scimitar, which was actually pretty nice because mine was just about to break. I continued sailing from there towards another ship, this one being a brand new type, and it's filled with isologers. I used a little bit of water to make it over the railing, getting up and into the ship to start fighting all the isologers, and they put you inside this little frozen coffin, which if you crouch, you're fine, but you need to break through the ice to be able to escape it. And that actually being on the boat is probably the biggest, most dangerous aspect of it. But I also remembered that this is a ship that has all sorts of secrets hidden around, so I broke through a lot of the walls, also taking advantage of this being some new and different wood types that I could collect for my base. I spent a little bit of time breaking that down before starting to sail home, finding another pirate ship along the way, mainly relying on my trident for the fight on this one, which is just fun. Using the pistol for the short range combat, and especially for enemies out of water that I can set on fire. And I had a lot of fun just taking out enemies for a distance as they're swimming away to try to take on the village fleet that's relatively nearby, clearing out the remainder of the enemies, switching to my new replacement scimitar, keeping the other one in my back pocket that I can double dip on enchants and potentially combine that into something really good. But the following morning, I was out of fuel and my ship is now crawling. So I went over towards the nearby villager fleet, donning my fanciest of hats, drinking a lucky potion, and looting a whole bunch of barrels. The biggest thing that I actually saw an increase in right away was golden apples, getting multiple of them available to me. But the sheer amount of coal that I got from the increased luck loot is really useful. It's going to keep my ship running for a while. But I was hearing some really weird sounds from under the water, and it turns out the Titans were fighting.
Oh, that's fighting. They're fighting. Who's gonna win? Oh, there's a Scullywog right there too.
I used my trident to clear out some of the much more directly aggressive mobs, heading under to the lower decks to start looting all of the chests here.
A slime chest plate. That's really interesting. All the globe. 4 globes. Why not? All the meat we could ever want too. And the front of the ship is missing. Okay. Let's just pretend we didn't see that.
And since the main ship is due to sink any moment now, I checked out the remainder of the ships nearby, taking advantage of my luck potion for as long as I could for its duration. Once that was all done, I sailed over towards another nearby pirate ship, taking some more opportunity to practice my aim for some long-range sniping. In the morning, doubling back to jump into the ship since the front was missing again, taking out one of the enemies that was protecting the back treasure chest and luring the rest into the ocean nearby, relying on my trident and the occasional bomb to be able to clear out a whole bunch of them.
What we got? Pirate hat! Yeah! Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. I'm gonna wear this. I don't care if it's not the optimal armor. This fits the theme. Let's go actually loot the spoils now. There's more! What we got? A Midas shovel. Interesting. I don't know what that does.
I still don't know what that Midas shovel does. I'm not gonna lie. If you can figure that out, please tell me in the comments. I checked out the remainder of the chests here, grabbing the TNT and the golden head from a very willing volunteer before heading to the lower decks, condensing everything down into its biggest, blockiest form, and using all of the coal that I had been collecting to start making our way back home. That cruise took the remainder of day 63 and into day the best console ever made, as the silhouette of my base looking awesome as I sail up. As soon as I docked, I made sure to pull all of the coal out of the engine so it wouldn't get burned with my boat just floating here, condensing all of the supplies and loot I had been collecting from around the ocean into the appropriate chests in the lower levels of the base. I also started moving a lot of the food components, specifically the meats and the things that would need to be cooked, over towards the area that I'm designating as a nice open air galley, which I can finally set up once I get the clay processed, which is what I actually started this whole adventure for. I have multiple golden skulls at this point. They're really just trophies, but it's nice to have more. 2 heads are better than 1, right? But I tried to figure out what the Midas shovel does here, and I still don't know. I'm sorry. I got the clay smelted up into a few bricks, which is what I need to be able to start working on a proper cook pot, grabbing a little bit of seawater before setting up a proper galley. With this upgraded food, I can now survive a lot longer and get a lot of passive effects from the things that I'm eating, so it's a no-brainer. But I also am going to need to do a little bit more farming, so it's time to make the base and the platform around the farm just the tiniest bit safer. Day 65. While it's storming decently bad, I figure I should probably build myself a roof. I'm sleeping in the rain 9 days out of 10 right now, and that is just not sustainable long term. So I grabbed a lot of the different woods I had from all over, making a little bit of a pattern and kind of like some basic crenellations and a very flat industrial style roof. This is, after all, an oil rig, so it wouldn't have a bunch of different decorations here. Everything should probably move to serve some sort of a purpose. So I decided to build a secondary little extra platform on top of my base and then build up a few what would basically look like radio antenna on top of that, which, considering it's the highest point of the base, actually kind of works. In trying to do that though, with a bunch of different decorative blocks, I learned out how the guardian spikes work. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that is so cool. I didn't know that was a thing. I am almost certainly going to have to use that to make some sort of a weapon or a cage or a trap at some point. I don't even know which mod it is that makes that possible, but that is such a good idea. That is probably one of the coolest little things I've ever seen in one of these mod packs, I'm not gonna lie. But I set up multiple different types of antenna, mainly using iron bars to get them to be a little bit taller, trying to figure out a way to have the guardian spikes be there because I think they look really visually unique compared to everything else. But the weather reminded me that I should probably make a lightning rod to protect my base, considering it's made almost exclusively out of wood, and wood happens to be flammable. So I finally got that installed at the very top of the antennas, and I don't know, it makes sense. It fits. And between that and utilizing what little leftover iron bars I had to add some additional grating around the pipe, this base is coming together. The next day I started by just doing some small decorating tasks around the base, putting down giant metal goblets and chains and other things like that. But I'm desperately in need for more wood and a few other stone supplies to really get this thing completed. So I sailed over towards the villager fleet that I thought I had left my villagers at, and it was the wrong one. So I just grabbed a few kelp blocks and sailed off. Heading over around, taking the long way towards another nearby fleet, which might be the one I left my traders at, encountering another one of those zombie pirate ships and clearing my way through everything. But in doing this as many times as I had, I got a little cocky.
Holy shit, this is actually a problem. Oh my god.
That close call was a reminder that I need to be careful in these structures. Even if I've cleared them dozens of times before, one unexpected additional wrinkle or just getting caught unprepared can lead to the end of the challenge, and I need to be careful. But I finished collecting the loot, sleeping on the boat before heading out, taking care of a few of the stragglers with a trident and some range. And along the way, I passed over a giant, much more detailed sunken shipwreck, something that actually looks way more fitting in this world than the existing vanilla ones. And there's a lot of food and supplies in here, plus some spawners for some sharks that are thankfully, at least at the moment, passive to me. I was excited to grab all the gunpowder barrels and the cannons from this ship here, getting a little bit of the treasure from the back rooms and finding some lore books, and y'all know I love lore. These would be stories that I'd read another time, but the first thing I needed to do was get all of the bombs and other loot out of the final bits of the chests, and then deal with the scullywogs that attacked as I was leaving the area, clearing out all of them, including the drowned who were captaining them. Actually ended up with some spectral arrows and some really nice loot there, clearing out the final bits of the mobs before going and doing another pass, grabbing the large flywheel, which is used as a steering wheel for the ship, but will be very useful for me in all of my create endeavors in the near future. Getting back towards home though, this has been nothing but a distraction. I grabbed a whole bunch of prismarine from the roof of that nearby temple, stopping over at the base the following day to drop off a bunch of things and then continue sailing along. Because it turns out the villager fleet where I left my traders was actually on the other side of my base, and I just spent the last 2 days on a pretty fun distraction, but I desperately needed more wood and supplies, where I had the forestry table actually activate for a second villager who ended up giving me perfect trades.
Oh my god, you're perfect.
Since I now had somebody who could deliver me every wood type instead of only 4 out of 6, I retired or attempted to retire the old forester, so that way they wouldn't get confused at the table and just kind of had to push them out of a hole in the boat. With the wood supplies now on board, I sailed back towards home, and in de-looting from all of my adventures the past 48 hours, I realized I lucked out even more than I originally thought.
Wait, that's a golden apple crate? Yo, I didn't even realize.
But I got everything organized into its respective chests, trying to make the most out of the little bit of storage space I had given myself, and kind of kicking with this challenge of keeping everything in its rightful place. But as that was all done, I grabbed my books, headed up to the top of the base, and did a little bit of light reading. The following morning is day 60 nice, so I figured let's do a little bit more organizing and making sure things are good. I started by categorizing and organizing all of the seeds near the farm, all of the meats and veggies over in the galley area, condensing a lot of it down into the crate versions just so they would store nicer in the limited space that I have to work with. And I actually have a ton of food. I'd been collecting basically anything I had seen for the entire 100 days, and having multiple crates of almost every food in the game feels really good. The only thing I'm short on is rice, because I just haven't found a plant for that, and growing it is actually really difficult in the ocean. But I finished by consolidating even everything down from the underwater bunker, just to make sure that all of my food and supplies were up here, and I'd be able to get into cooking in the last quarter of this challenge to really have some good quality meals. I started chopping up a few of the guardians that I had killed in my trip into the ocean monument, which would allow me to then cook the tails for a very seaworthy snack. But as I was wrapping up my culinary exploits, I did have to see a tornado passing dangerously close towards the base. But thankfully, my weather deflector is continuing to do its job, and I can just farm cabbage while the world experiences sharknadoes around me. So I just cooked up some guardian tails, smoked some mutton, and had a quick nap. Where the following morning, I finished getting all of those ingredients together, converting the mutton into wraps, which would be a nice fulfilling meal, and then having some grilled guardian tail, which feels a little bit more thematically correct, if a little bit less immediately valuable. I smoked up some rotten flesh to get some additional leather, which I could turn into more item frames, which I could then use to label all of the chests that I had placed out in the galley area, throwing down the flywheel and some other blocks in the upper part of the base, just for mainly decoration. I then headed underwater, taking all of the prismarine that I had collected, breaking the regular prismarine, and making a fully dark prismarine beacon, all the way upgraded to tier 3, which is nice. It'll attack anything hostile in the water underneath me. I then dove down into the ocean, all the way down to one of the little mine pockets that I had made, collecting a whole bunch of andesite for the remainder of the day, as I have a lot of create things that I want to get involved with, but I needed some base materials and supplies to really get started with that. And as I bounce around on the top deck, just trying to plan out and mentally map what's gonna come next, I'm feeling good. We're really chewing through this adventure. And in the morning, I grab my wood and supplies, and it's time for another montage. With a whole lot of building done, I needed to do a little bit more on the resource grind, getting some iron and copper smashed up into plates, making myself a few more pipes, the bellows, and making myself a third engine for the ship. This should allow me to move even faster and start covering more ground as I need to venture out even further to be able to continue finding supplies.
The ship is looking nice. The only problem is the front is, it's very back heavy. The whole ship is leaning backwards. So I'm gonna try this. This might be a bad idea. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. I think if I stick it down in there. I hate how trapdoors are invisible on this boat. And we can take this and we can put it on top so we won't see it. Make the boat a little bit more even. It still leans back. Maybe I need another. Let's try putting another one in place. I think that did it. It's more level now. Sick. It's a little annoying that you can see the metal. And I'm out of spruce. I spent all my spruce again just to get this going. So we'll have to do some fixing, but we put our money away. Our creeper head, which refuses to render, which is annoying. All of our bombs and all of our bombs. But all of this is so we can go exploring a little better. And with 3 engines, hopefully a little faster. We're gonna cook. We're gonna see where we go. We are also bigger, so it's gonna be interesting.
But with the ship properly balanced and ballasted, is ballasted a word? It is now. I sailed out into the deep blue sea, having a harvest moonrise, which made me pause and consider whether or not I should actually go back, but I figured no, let's commit. I'm heading south primarily, just because I haven't explored that direction as far, at least not due south, passing by a pirate dinghy who had gotten into a fight with a tornado, and checking out the island that had actually been stripped of most of its leaves by the storm. But we're not going there, land is banned, so we're continuing on our way. And while heading over that direction, I did find a little bit of sand, which I wanted to collect because I need to make more sandstone for my upper building, just so the walls on that can be complete. I was then reminded that the sleeping bag doesn't work on the boat for some reason. I'm not sure why, so I had to sleep at the bottom of the ocean, swimming back up to the ship and then continuing on the way south. Finding some watering traders wanting to sell their wares.
Hello. Anything fun? Oh. Drip leaf is fun.
But after checking with everybody, it wasn't exactly promising, so I just quickly looted up the remainder of all of the chests, getting everything I needed and heading south as a storm started to roll in. The concept of being flung around the world is kind of concerning, so I wanted to get ahead of it, actually passing by a mushroom biome too, sailing directly through them and getting to a large glacial area. A frozen part of the sea that I had yet to see before. And once I set foot on there, I earned the Ice Maid's advancement. This is actually a spot that is critical towards the progression towards some of the pirate mods that I've installed, so I'm really lucky to have found it. I'm just surprised it took me this long. I made my way through the ice. A pickaxe is actually really good for this, eventually digging into the back of the ship, fighting off a few of the pillagers from around here and just trying to keep my distance from both them and the storm. The back of this boat led to a massive vertical mine shaft down into the ice, so I needed to be careful. Falling here would be near certain death. But I grabbed a few emeralds in the item frames, getting a few amazing tomes in one of the barrels.
Oh my god, loyalty. I can get loyalty 4. I can get a breaking 4.
But the barrels on the main platform were unfortunately extremely disappointing. I mined my way out and around the side of the ship, taking out a few pillagers who were waiting for me in the wings, before seeing a tornado in the distance and getting a little bit concerned. I'm gonna have to get down deeper into the ship if I want to avoid that thing pulling me up into the sky and then yeeting me in a random direction. Especially with all the ice around here, there's a really good chance I would fall to my death instead of safely in the ocean. So I jumped down into the lower deck, dealing with one of the Vindicators who had an axe that looked very dangerous, and then cleaning up the remainder of the pillagers, securing the lowest floor of this ship. There's a decent bit of food down here, which is nice to have, but it's mainly the fact that they were keeping villagers in cages that had me a little bit concerned, I'm not gonna lie. I cleared out a final Vindicator in the front treasure room, which finally had some valuable shiny things inside, and then very carefully peeked my head out of the top of the ship to see where the storm was heading. Staying down this shaft would actually let me avoid the storm, and having the water expose that there's more underneath this layer of ice, that's just some good luck. You can't even make that stuff up. The only tricky part is you can't touch water in this biome. You immediately start taking freezing ticks. So I had to go out and mine some blocks, which I could use to make a small gap in the water to be able to then make another safer way down. Once I had cleared a spot where I could see what I was looking for, I mined up a lot of the ice around the outer edge of the shaft, continuing to work my way down, blocking off any water that would spawn from ice that was being broken. There's some really weird, glowing, drowned, frozen zombies here, and that is a lot of adjectives at once. But being able to dispatch them with my bow several times and then just continuing working my way down, I did eventually get to the point where it looked like the cave opened up and warmed up. But as I mined out to grab just a few final blocks to be able to block off the water to make it into the tunnel, I did end up finding diamonds.
Hello, diamonds.
Like I said, you can't make this up. I just love going through these adventures and seeing what happens randomly. But as it rolled over to day 75, I ventured into the cave and was greeted with a new challenge. That is some sort of giant sea snake. I'm not 100% sure what it is exactly, but it is immune to projectile damage. So I'm gonna need to get in close if I wanna fight this thing. I jumped down onto the roof, dealing with a few zombies that were running at me, just clearing those with range, as I still could, checking and seeing if it's just a matter of being within a certain radius, but no, bows, tridents, completely useless. So it's time to just down a golden apple and get in for a fight. After doing a decent bit of damage, it dove underground, popping up in another area and having its roar knock me back. And I need to be careful because I don't know what's down these pits and off these sides if something even worse is potentially waiting for me. I'm using gapples just to keep up my resistance and health regeneration, trying to use my saber to do as much damage as possible.
Oh, I got it.
What did that do? What did that do? Oh, it's spawning bones.
Echo of a ship graveyard.
Big treasure pouches. We'll open that later.
With the giant sea snake killed, I checked some of the barrels around here, just trying to see what the loot was. Thankfully, I could touch the water in this area, which is good because about half the house is just fully flooded. Checking the barrels at the top and finding a frozen locked chest. And I can't open that right now, so I headed back out, grabbed everything that I could from everything around this area, made a few torches, and then started to check underwater, getting a few of these floating bubbles that I can use to illuminate and create swimming lanes underneath my base. But taking full advantage of the water giving me extra vertical mobility, I swam up to the upper floors of the house, making it into each of the individual rooms and using the currents to hold the mobs back so that I could do damage, but they can't reach me. I'm grabbing a ton of the different pirate loot box pouches that are here, keeping them sealed and consolidated just to try to manage inventory space, relying primarily on my range to be able to take out a lot of the enemies that are appearing and trying to jump scare me. They're hiding in the walls underneath the stairs, each of them guarding barrels with a decent bit of additional loot, and finding additional chests hidden in the rafters thanks to the fact that the rooms are flooded. It feels like I'm only about halfway done looting this structure, but my inventory is completely full, so we need to take a little pit stop. So I headed back towards the frozen shaft, having to work my way back up and through it, trying to parkour around the edges before realizing that the freezing damage, while dangerous, isn't exactly immediately lethal. So taking a little bit of water damage here and there is fine. As I worked up to the area where there's that first shelf of ice, which is a bit of a blocker, and then at that point basically saying, you know what, to heck with it, downing a golden apple and then just swimming up the water, tanking the freezing damage the whole way, eventually breaking to the surface and running back to my ship to empty my pockets. The next morning I dropped everything off before opening up the pirate loot boxes to see what was waiting inside. That stuff was all pretty interesting, but I want to go back and make sure that I have everything from this place, considering it's pretty far away and I don't know how many times I'm going to be able to return. There's still quite a few pillagers around here, so I need to be careful moving from room to room, making sure to clear everything and looting the chests. A lot of them being pretty uneventful, I'm not going to lie. That wasn't until I started getting to some of the lower room, including some barrels that were hidden underwater that had some really interesting things inside.
Ooh. Villagers and pillagers drop extra emeralds. Can't be... Oh, that's fun. Theft punishment when attacking villagers.
Once I found that dagger, I was hearing basically every pillager in the structure on the other side of this wall breaking through to find one of the main loot rooms, and the fact that all of the water had slowly funneled them down to the bottom of the structure in the lowermost room. Utilizing that dagger and my existing weapons, I was able to clear out all the enemies here, checking through all the barrels, picking up a bunch of emeralds and some interesting stews. But there was also some just useful basic necessities in here, a lot of coal, some ominous banners that will be useful for decoration. But this dagger is amazing. I'm hoping being able to put unbreaking on that thing, or mending maybe, will allow it to be able to be repaired, but it's basically like a limited high tier weapon, and I found it late enough in the playthrough that it should hopefully last me the rest of the way. I cleared some of the remaining rooms before finding another logbook, grabbing a lot more treasure, and finishing up by swimming up the final set of staircase leading back up to the attic, which was the entry point for what I had in the first place. Then I tried to figure out where that key comes from.
Oh. Oh boy. How would that work?
Captain Cornelia is undoubtedly the enemy that all of these journals are pointing towards, but taking her on is a very serious endeavor, and even with all of the gear I've collected so far, I'm not nearly ready to be able to do that. Probably exemplified by the fact that I'm getting jump scared as soon as I get out of this cave.
What the heck was that?
But there's a lot more for me to discover here in the Frozen Lands. New structures just over the horizon. So I headed back to the ship, dropped off all of the things that I had been collecting, and then ventured back out onto the ice to head over towards my next target. This one was less of a ship that had been retrofitted into a mining colony and more of another large oil rig or oil platform set up on top of everything. Before I could actually make it up to there though, I was checking out some of the lower, closer to sea level structures, looting another yacht, getting some interesting books from on top of that, and grabbing a waste stone that was just sitting on one of the glaciers here. This could allow me to fast travel back to this location without having to sail all the way, so it's very useful. But with that in hand, I headed over towards the base platform, sniping a few of the enemies from a distance before using water to climb up, even though it froze me along the way. I dinged to level 30 as I was looting some of the lower barrels, really kind of leaving some of the foods and other low tier stuff behind, trying to prioritize and focus my inventory right now. I headed up to some of the higher areas, getting to the point where I could capture a few NPCs off in a corner, secure my location, and then kill them via their ankles. But I failed to secure one of the main doors, having a whole host of enemies pour out and then trap me inside of a small corner. And I'm recording this on the 2-year anniversary of dying like that in my second hardcore world. So I'm not gonna have that happen. I jumped off of the platform, freezing a little bit on the way before sniping from a distance and then climbing back up in the water to recover and regain my footing. Given a bit of time and persistence, I was able to clear everything, finding a few more lore books that were pointing me in the direction of fighting Cornelia. I grabbed a few more pirate loot boxes from along the way before properly securing the final door and sniping my way in, picking up some diamonds and some iron for my troubles. The diamonds are pretty good because some of my gear is showing a little bit of wear and tear, so I jumped off of the platform, taking a quick nap on the ice before continuing to run back towards my ship the following morning. I was able to bank a lot of my supplies, but even my loot barrels are starting to get pretty full right now, so I used some of the iron to make myself an anvil, which allowed me to put chained on the trident. I'm not 100% sure what it does, but more enchantments for my trident, yeah, I'm here for that. The weather started to hail and storm as I continued inland. Inland? In ice? On ice? Something like that. Making it towards a secondary pirate ship, this one not having been turned into a mining colony and instead being just a proper ship that happens to be encased by ice on every side. There's a lot of vindicators around here, so I need to be careful because axe crits are actually pretty damaging. So I worked my way down to the lower levels trying to maintain the high ground so I had a bit of an advantage. And the loot in the captain's quarters is already looking really promising.
Oh my goodness. So, feather falling 5. I mean, 2 of these are worthless, right? But sharpness is awesome. The banes are worthless. That's something though. Wait, what's this? I can summon the boss. Okay. Another feather falling. Do I have feather falling on my boots? I don't. Dang, I need feather falling, then get plus feather falling. And first of all, she had the master key with her. As our hopes of rescue dwindle, the threat of rebellion grows.
So I continued working my way down to the lower decks, where it turns out there's a whole lot of villagers trapped in cages right here, which is kind of unfortunate for them. Once I had gotten all of the valuables out of all of the different areas, I broke the chains in the back, which led to a secondary little loot room that had a whole lot of gold stuck inside. Once I had finished looting everything, I made my way back over towards my ship, dropping everything off, especially all the tomes, which are really valuable, and I wanted to use as many of those as possible. Sleeping on the boat one final time before loading up the engines with coal and starting to head out of here. I plopped down the waystone for the frozen land so I'd be able to warp back a lot quicker if I ever get the means to take on Captain Cornelia. I think that would make for a really nice final boss fight for this 100 Days adventure. But I sailed past and through the gateway of Mushroom Island, past several other ships which I had looted along my way, fighting a few scullywogs that had actually somehow latched onto the bottom of the boat and were following me along, clearing those out before continuing north. And this is one of those days where I just kind of sailed in a straight line for 10 minutes, and you're seeing a quick little montage whenever anything interesting was passing me by on the ocean as I eventually make my way back home. Then comes the de-looting process, dropping everything off and putting it into all of the chests, trying to maintain some semblance of organization as I have a whole lot of stuff that I've been collecting. And once you get the world download, if you happen to be a patron, you can use to continue your adventure on the high seas where I left off. The really exciting thing is having so many different enchanted books and the supplies to make duplicates of a lot of the things that I already have at a potential chance of combining multiple enchants to level things up to a really significant, powerful jump. I thought for a second that I could put fast spin or distance on a trident. Maybe it would make Riptide even more powerful. Can you imagine me sailing around the ocean with Riptide right now? That would be so cool. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So I just spent a little bit more time making things like a stone cutter, upgrading my sword to a diamond variant before sleeping here for a second. The following morning, I set up a grindstone, and then it's time to do a little bit of rolling of enchantments.
30 levels? That costs 30 levels? Are you kidding me? These books are a scam. All right, let's see what we get. Sharpness would be good. I need feather falling. Oh, hold up. Feather falling works. And then if I do this, that makes it 4. And then another, but I don't know if I like that. That helps though. Do I have any unbreaking books?
Now with some much better enchanted weapons and gear, I did a little bit more enchanting of mainly just books, doing some basic rolls on the sword as well, grinding off any enchants that don't really seem inherently promising before checking and getting multiple of those that I could hopefully combine books with a pretty big surplus of levels that I've collected.
That's 10. That's 8. That's 9. That's 2. Okay. 11 levels. I can work on 11 levels. Actually, hold up. Also 11, but that would give me... Okay. So I need 11 levels. Can do that. That's not too hard.
With my armor upgraded, let's upgrade some explosives as well. I figured out what it would take to make the bombs, and it's basically just TNT and a whole lot of iron in a 4-to-1 ratio. So I combined a whole bunch of iron ingots, and I made myself well over 2 stacks of explosives, doing my best to make Shax proud. I also figured since I'm basically gearing up to fight God, I'm definitely going to try to go in for the combat with Captain Cornelia. So I made myself another warp stone, which would allow me to make another waystone, which I'll be able to put here at the base so I can warp over to the Frosted Lands easily. But I need a place for it, so I started making just one more platform above the main deck that I'm living on, which I can use for some final additional supplies and storage. I got a ladder up towards there and then started in the evening working on a crane. In the morning, I grabbed a whole bunch of supplies and then just started putting something together. I'm using a couple different designs. I will leave links to some of the inspirations that I had down in the description, but I want this thing to look like a full and proper oil rig, and part of that would be a way to load and unload supplies onto ships that would be coming by to visit. Now, the physics mod does make this a little bit more complicated because it makes trapdoors behave in wonky ways and they don't just stay perfectly still. Additionally to that, I'm working with a very limited block palette, having not everything available to me, and the chain that I want to use to connect the main platform with all the barrels on it swings and it doesn't stay fully connected. So the chain's not really at tension, but it kind of works. It mostly works. I dove into the water to grab a few of the parts that I had left behind as I was breaking things, making my way back up onto the top platform just in time.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I'm very glad that I didn't go underground because that probably could have been bad. That's fine. Fine.
As all the monsters started to gather around me, I moved a lantern over onto the platform as it is just far enough away that I'm concerned some mobs would spawn on it, spending the evening doing some final decorations before heading down to some of the lower decks just using my trident and my bow to take out as many enemies as possible. I had spent almost all of my levels for enchanting, so this is a good way to get geared back up.
Oh my god. Well, the good news is the conduit's working. Oh, that's awesome. The conduit's killing them.
The conduit was actually helping here, and I'm really glad that I built that before this blood moon. So everything is coming up Gundo using the trident and my bow to smite as many enemies as I can.
One eternity later.
Yes. Oh, level 11. Hold up. We can enchant those pants right away. Down a layer. Here, right? Boop, boop. Second, now they're repair too, which is even better.
Having spent almost all of my levels to get my chest plate upgraded, I did a little bit more farming, also really just to clear the area so the ocean underneath my base wouldn't be inherently hostile. Realizing that there is a second wave of drowned that had kind of sunk down to the ocean floor, me going in the water aggroed all of them, so they made their way back up, and I was able to use the trident to do a lot of combat underneath the conduit, letting the conduit kind of be an ally in the situation, focusing on the ones that could throw stuff back at me and kiting around the rest so that they would be killed by the conduit, or I could kill them with the trident. I spent a majority of my levels getting things like my helmet repaired and having mending on it, being just a level short for my chest plate, so I decided to throw a trident at a shark who wasn't bothering me. Okay, yeah, that's a little bit mean, I admit. But it's okay. Mother Nature made me pay for that right away.
Weather deflector. You're doing your job. Keep doing your job, please.
In a cruel, ironic twist, however, the mending that I had just put on all of my armor absorbed all of the experience, meaning I didn't gain any levels to be able to actually go ahead and upgrade my chest plate. So I dove underwater in some of the lower areas, checking underneath the obsidian in the ravine, and then swimming over to the sunken area, mainly mining up redstone, mainly for the experience. Firstly, to repair my gear, and then to do a little bit of upgrading. I spent some time down in the caves fighting mobs and hitting some of the more valuable ores just to get everything fully repaired so that any experience I'm gaining, I can turn into more enchants to get things a little bit better upgraded. Clearing that problem, I was able to make my way back up to the surface on the morning of day 83, condensing all of the redstone down into block form before upgrading my chest plate, and then checking out what I want to do next for the next little segment of the base. Firstly was re-upping on food, chopping all of the mutton I had collected, smoking that up, and making myself a whole lot more mutton wraps. There's a lot of other foods that I hadn't yet had the opportunity of making, but they required things like tea leaves. I tried doing some stuff with the dirt, seeing if any of that would drop some random seeds or leaves, but unfortunately I didn't have any luck. So instead I invested in the dishes I already had access to, making some red dye from some beetroot, combining that with some blue from lapis, which allowed me to make purple to make a warp stone, then making a sandstone waystone, say that 3 times fast, to mark my home. The following morning though, I need some more and different woods to finish up on my idea for the design for the crane, as well as kind of for the base as a whole. So I loaded up all the engines with coal and sailed over towards my villager fleet, forgetting that I had bad omen and unfortunately triggering a raid. Now this is interesting because it's just a tiny bit of dry land. The pillagers basically spawn boarding one of the boats and then immediately either conquer that one to move towards the center or kind of swim somewhat aimlessly. But it does lead to some really interesting challenges. I found perching myself on top of the central ship basically gave me the best advantage for being able to take out enemies as they were slowly swimming from one shipwreck to another. And while that worked with some of the more melee-focused combatants like the Vindicators, the remainder of the pillagers can shoot back, which I need to be careful about. I also needed to set up some water so that I could actually, climb onto the boat, as the ladders don't make it down to the water's surface, having the pillagers flip-flopping between 2 main ships when evokers and ravagers started to spawn. Killing the evoker was pretty easy at distance, and I was able to pick up a totem. The ravager, however, got caught in the bubbles and pulled down to the bottom of one of the magma ravines, where I kind of just let them burn themselves to death. But if I was not careful, that could have gone in a very weird direction. Speaking of weird directions, there was just one pillager who decided to go AWOL, abandoned the quest, and I had to go for the long-range snipe.
Oh, the shot.
Once that was cleared, however, the raid continued into the evening, with the pillagers spawning actually up on the sails and killing themselves with fall damage. So they're helping me out here. I quickly slept on my boat as the next wave started to spawn, this one having quite a few more evokers and actually causing me a bit of a problem. There's also some illusioner mobs which will blind me, which does make me attacking from range far more difficult, as I want to avoid hitting any of the friendly mobs at a risk of aggroing them or spawning some golems who could really mess me up. Once I was able to clear wave 4, wave 5 eventually spawned with a lot of pillagers making a firing line, which actually started to make things super dangerous. And then the Vex attacked.
Oh, crap. I hate Vex.
Vex are, in my opinion, the worst enemy in the game. I know a lot of people think silverfish are really bad to deal with or endermen are scary. Vex are scary. They can phase through walls, they phase through water, and they regularly spawn with high-level enchanted weaponry that even the fact that I'm in protection 4 armor is doing multiple hearts of damage for me right here. I can't fight them on any of the ships because they just phase through and bite my ankles, so I need to take them on in the open sea, which is running the risk each evening of a blood moon spawning in and a whole lot of monsters biting me. Granted, we have a little bit of a grace period from the previous blood moon, but once tonight is over, night 85, that's over. So if I don't complete this raid quick and wrap things up, I'm looking at a potentially lethal combination here. But the problem was, while I was dealing with all of the Vex who were aggroed on me, a few of them were able to phase into the ship proper and kill all of my villagers, meaning I lost my mending trade and I lost my perfect 6-for-6 forester as well. But in the morning, there's just one attacker left, and the bell is not doing the best at illuminating them, making it a little bit hard for me to figure out where they are. I ran around back and forth, checking underneath the ships next to them, until I had an arrow hit the water next to me and realized that they were stuck up in the sails.
There you are. Hey, we did it. It only cost me all of my good traders. Well, break a few eggs and all that. Oh, it's storming. Where's my boat? Oh, I wasted all my coal!
Having once again wasted all of my fuel, leaving that burning while I was dealing with the raid, I slowly crawled my way out of the storm's reach, just trying to make sure that I wasn't going to get pulled up into a tornado. And I wasn't the only one who wanted to leave.
Let's see if we can bring a new crew member all the way back to our base. It might just work. They're staying alive. Okay, that looks super cool. It just needs a little, like, across. But the rig is looking awesome. Oh no, we lost our friend. Where'd they go? Did they sink? They might have sank.
Having unfortunately not being able to recruit a villager to join me on my platform, I headed up and then started doing a little bit of enchanting, taking some of the levels that I had collected from the raid to upgrade my Dagger of Greed. Sharpness won't help it last longer, but it does mean I need to take fewer hits for the kills, so it kind of indirectly does. I spent a little bit more time just rolling on several different enchants, getting my boots combined to make them a little bit more long-lasting, banking all of the totems in a barrel here on the ship, as I feel like I'm really only ever going to need them when I'm venturing out and getting into actual combat opportunities, doing a little bit of moving around of some of the pipes and copper elements on the main deck of the base to just better utilize the space and make things look interesting. Day 87, I'm doing a little bit more work here at the base because I want this place to look good, but I also want it to be functional. I made a few bookcases that will mainly be used for decoration, making a basin and another depot, also trying to get a mixer in play so that I can have another little bit of create tech available to me as I'm starting to get things wrapped up. I set up some gearboxes and shafts to be able to move some of the power of this to the upper level, having to smash a few iron plates to get myself a mixer, which I'm able to combine with the casing to get an actual mixer in play, getting the basin underneath and starting to look into mixing up some brass. That did require me to have that heated. So that's gonna take a little bit of work, but it also overstresses the system. So I made a second large water wheel. This would double the stress capacity. While not doubling the speed, it does make it able to support more machines. I refactored and upgraded the arm that was holding everything together, making it look a little bit more like actual scaffolding and support instead of just a couple of wooden blocks, taking some of the extra lanterns that I had to do a little bit of illuminating around the base. And the clockwork menagerie that is me whenever I try to make anything with Create actually kind of works here. It lends towards the idea of this being a large mechanical structure and something that has just a bit of everything around. So I'm thankful that my ineptitude at the mod is making something that at least looks, to me, aesthetically pleasing. But I took the iron plates and some netherrack to make myself a blaze burner, or an empty burner. And this mod pack is set up that I don't need to go to the nether to actually get this heated, but it is going to be a little bit of a multi-step journey to actually be able to get there. First things first was making some more copper plates to make a few more copper pipes that would allow me to get some lava into the system so that I could actually start spraying lava on things. Then I kind of needed to go get lava, so I headed down into the lower areas, grabbing just one bucket, thinking, oh yeah, one bucket will totally do everything I needed to do. Oh, how naive I was. I condensed a lot of the coal that I had, the precious fuel for my ship, because it's going to lead me to another kind of fuel and something else interesting. From there, I ate the coal blocks. Yeah, I'm actually putting it on sandpaper, but tell me this doesn't look like I'm eating the coal blocks. Making some coal rods that I was able to then put in the depot, having them sprayed with lava, thinking that they would just immediately turn into blaze rods. But this is the start of a very, very long process. So I made myself another 9 buckets, heading back underground, filling all of them with lava. I grabbed a few other blocks of zinc ore, which will be useful for a little bit of Create stuff in a second, as well as needing to grab a whole bunch more coal because I need to make a bunch more coal blocks, and I also need to fuel my ship, even though I'm using some of this for other purposes right now. But I started spraying the coal rods with lava, getting them to the first step of a 12-step process that will eventually allow me to make blaze rods without ever setting foot in the nether. Day 89, I'm on step 2 of 12, having all of the incomplete rods get pressed in the press, smashed down, and about here is where I realized how long this process is gonna take. So I headed back up to the upper area, filling the basin with lava and then putting all the rods in place, getting all of those sprayed, jumping back down, having them pressed in the press once again, and now we're at step 5. This is only a halfway point, and I've used all of the lava that I've collected so far. This is gonna be a bit of a problem. So I headed back down into the cave system underneath, trying to find a larger area that had a whole lot of lava and getting jumped by a whole lot of mobs as soon as I entered the area. I was thankfully able to rely on my bow primarily to take things out, heading down one of the branch off caves just to get lava and kind of double dipping by finding some diamonds here as well. From that, it's back up, swimming all the way up through the ocean, climbing the rope, and setting all of the lava into the basin to allow that to be sprayed back onto the rods, then taking the rods downstairs, having them be smashed up, going back up for another round of spraying, and then going back down for another round of smashing.
Okay, if this works, we should get blaze rods. We do! Yes! That's so cool. That is a way to get blaze rods without the nether, which I don't have in this pack. I haven't disabled it. You can go to the nether when you download it, but I didn't want to. I figured it would be worth the challenge. You are very close to my face right now. Yes! That's sick. That is so cool.
I don't know if any of that was comprehensible or coherent. It was a long process that took a lot of effort. I'm proud of it, but man, it took a lot of effort. So now that I have the blaze rods, day 90, we're in the end game of this scenario, and I can actually get things kind of set up. I made some bone blocks, which I can click onto some sand to make some soul sand, which then, combined with the empty burner and the 7 blaze rods I've collected, allows me to craft a filled sentient blaze burner. Basically skipping the part where you capture a blaze and doing it entirely from the overworld. So then, utilizing some burnable materials as food for the blaze and combining some zinc that I had just recently mined up with some of the copper ore, I'm able to combine that all to make brass, which is the next step forward in my overall evolution through the tech tree. And I kind of have the zinc smelting, the copper smelting, and the mixing happening simultaneously, so I'm running from floor to get everything combined in the right way, and that took a good chunk of the day, but I'm feeling good kind of getting into the brass age as we start heading into our final 10 days. But being reminded that we're actually heading towards the end of this adventure on the high seas, I have something that I acquired all the way back at like day 10 in this world, the blade to the pirate skull sword. And I need to get the handle and a skull in order to complete that. So I sailed out mainly looking for some of those different pirate ships. I sailed through a storm, passing by another little island, hitting up a wandering trader that was selling things from around the ocean, but green dye, something that I genuinely can't get any other way in this world. I invested a few emeralds into that, heading off to find more shipwrecks or abandoned boats with a bunch of treasure inside, grabbing some jungle logs, which I could actually use to grow cocoa beans so I could make different foods going forward. There's a whole ton of stuff that you can make with just like chocolate in Create that I just never have. And I don't know, one of these days, I'm gonna go full Willy Wonka. But I sailed up on another one of those pirate vessels, breaking my way in through the back, primarily relying on my pistol to take out the enemies inside, before sailing around, doing loops, and taking out some of the lower tier enemies with melee combat. They were quite piled into the corner and more than willing to form an orderly line of established murder. But once I cleared the back space, breaking underneath the chests and opening up the main loot box, I found something interesting.
Oh, yes! Put that there for right now.
That flame artifact is basically a triple shot rocket launcher that can blow up almost anything on the high seas and could get me into some fun little bit of trouble for some final battles. I worked on clearing out the lower deck of the ship, making sure to not repeat my mistake of getting pinned down here with the monsters that give you weakness and therefore make it really hard to kill them, clearing out the chests, and finally remembering to use that whole organizing feature, which does make collecting everything from in here a little bit easier. I completed looting the final couple chests, freeing and then immediately decapitating the golden skeleton, sleeping on the boat for a little bit before heading out and continuing on this adventure. And as I'm sailing further and further away, despite making land like a 1% chance to spawn, I started seeing more and more islands. Okay, that structure definitely looks interesting, and putting myself in the mindset of a pirate, if I saw a giant mansion just a few blocks inland, I'd kinda have to go raid it, right? Like I would have to go and attack it. I know we said land is banned. I'm not gonna go and get things like dirt or wood or resources, but I can go get into a fight, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go get into a fight. Inside the barrels at the very front were a lot of decorative blocks, things that I really don't have any other route to acquire. Once I opened the doors, it was actually fully populated with pirates. So I'm not looting, I'm salvaging. I'm rescuing the house from being attacked by pirates and just managing my own reward. I fought my way in, clearing through all of the initial pillagers and the illusioner who was actually operating out of the main space, finding some spawners underneath the bare carpets, which I had to break in order to stop the constant torrent of enemies. I actually ended up in a pseudo backrooms situation in a small space underneath the floor of the structure as it had slightly improperly generated, finding some slightly goofy items from a few of the armor stands and some sacks with some really interesting crystals hidden inside. There's a lot of create items here, which is useful for me. A lot of raw zinc, things like a wrench, which I just haven't ever decided to make. There's also diamonds and just base raw materials like coal as well. And there's a lot here. A lot. I started going through the chests and the sacks on this little supply wall and saw something really exciting. Nether wart. Like I said, I had banned the nether. There was no way to get any sort of potion creating ingredients, but I grabbed that threw it in my pocket, and then got really excited, but realized my inventory was overstuffed. So I started trying to use the sacks from around here, which basically act as 9-slot shulker boxes, dropping off all sorts of items in here. The only problem is when you try to carry more than 2 sacks, you become over encumbered and you're slowed down. And it was right about now that I actually realized what I had found.
Oh my god, that's nether wart. I can make potions.
So I worked on finishing up looting, grabbing the brewing stands since I have a lot more use for those right now, checking out any of the remaining chests before looking around at all the different create components at the very top of the structure here. There's a lot of different pipes and things that I will probably be able to use. And heading up to the actual proper bedroom of the place, there's even more decorative blocks waiting for me. So I started grabbing a lot of stuff, some of the other depots, valves, the clock, the different create things which are going to be useful. I grabbed 2 of the sacks that I had made so I wouldn't become over encumbered and ran back towards the ship, jumping on board just as I was punished for breaking one of the main rules of this challenge. So I sailed to a nearby pirate ship, one that had not yet been cleared, so I immediately needed to take on all of the skeleton enemies here, being extremely careful and mainly prioritizing defusing the TNT traps that exist across this ship. I fought primarily on the main deck before breaking my way down to the lower levels, breaking all the TNT, not even worrying about collecting it, just purely diffusing things. One errant arrow blowing up this boat means that I'm basically guaranteed dead if the denizens of the ocean can make their way to me. I focused on heading down as fast as I could, clearing out the spawner so the actual core structure was safe, checking out a few of the chests just so I got some supplies, and then heading up to the main deck once I had lit everything up underneath to see just how much trouble I was in. This is what I get for breaking my own rules, and the fact that it just happened all automatically is oh so poetic. But now I'm pinned on a ship surrounded by anglerfish, just barely off the coast of an island that I genuinely was cursed to ever have set foot on. And while there are things I can do to mitigate the danger and be more careful, stay towards the center of the ship, avoid anything that would pull me into the ocean, if a storm comes up here, a tornado, I'm dead. There's nothing I can do, and I don't have the protection of my home base and the weather deflector to keep those sorts of dangers away. And just because the sun came up the following morning doesn't mean it's solved. If anything, the opposite. These entities, they all exist underwater. They don't burn. They don't get removed after the blood moon is done. I just have to put in the work and clear them. I'm walking along the very side of the boat, collecting banners because I'm still a loot goblin after all. Whenever I see a mob come up close to me, I use a trident to try to take it out, eventually diving down into the water as well to be more direct with the combat because I started to get a little bit impatient. And in doing that, I did get put below half health, which, okay, maybe patience would have been a virtue here, but just keeping my cool, being okay with the combat, focusing on using my trident for range, I can clear a good portion of the mobs here, collecting some good supplies that I can potentially turn into some really interesting armor. So this Bane might be a bit of a boon after all. But I learned my lesson. I abandoned the island, I abandoned the 3rd sack, whatever was in it, and I thought losing a 1/3 of my loot is maybe a fitting tribute to the ocean that I'm recommitted and land is once again banned. I passed by a couple structures on the way home, clearing another one of those pillager towers, which allowed me to recoup some of the gold apples that I had to spend to deal with the final tail end of that blood moon. But I didn't forget the quest that actually sent me out on the ocean in the first place. Looking for more of the zombie crew pirate ships, just hoping to get the final couple components to be able to create the Skull Smasher sword, which is the endgame item of this mod. I become a bit of a pirate hunter once again, knowing how to take out these enemies, focusing and having a clear strategy in order to work my way through each room. And while I didn't end up getting these sword components, I did get a Skull of Doom. Also picking up a Dragon's Eye gem, which whenever it's in my inventory increases my hearts by 2. So it might not have been the treasure I wanted, but it was the treasure that I deserved. I did end up picking up a replacement scimitar, but at this point my diamond sword is a little bit better than that, grabbing the last little bit of gold and food and supplies out of the basement chests. The following morning, I finished categorizing all of the remaining treasure on the ship, just trying to get it off and into the barrels, not even worrying about emptying the sacks that I had, just getting everything out of my pockets and then getting on the boat and sailing back towards home, which quick little cut montage, and we're back, even though that took me maybe like 10 minutes IRL. Despite 3 engines on this boat, I'm covering more and more distance to the point where venturing out is almost a full day time commitment at this point. But I started working on getting everything organized into the chests on the rig. And at this point, a lot of the chests are starting to get a little bit full, so I have to be creative with what I'm putting where, or start subdividing the content into multiple different barrels. So I'm making sure to move all of the enchanted books up by the enchanting area. I'm moving all the paper as well, even though it's not exactly useful for what's up here. Also getting some of the storage and some of the more decorative blocks to be a part of the upper area, so I don't need to worry about storing them and instead can make them a little bit more visual and more a cohesive part of the build. I threw down the sacks to be decoration, emptying their contents and realizing that I hadn't gotten the nether wart. I had selected the wrong 2, and since the blood moon started, I had left the 3rd behind. So if you get the world download, you know where to go find it, considering you can't go to the nether. But I worked on getting the final bits deposited onto the rig, making an area for potion brewing over kind of close to the galley. Even though I couldn't make new potions, I'd collected a few from some of the different chests, and they were basically sodas, so storing them here kind of makes sense. After that, I put some effort into condensing a lot of the components down into their block forms, just trying to save on some semblance of inventory space. Finding a spot to store all of the golden skulls right by the magic feels moderately appropriate. The following day, I'm just finishing up on organizing. I started chopping up some fish to be able to make some salmon slices, which I could then use to make another couple wraps and recipes that would be at least slightly more aquatically themed. Mainly working on things like cabbage and some of the other veggies before making myself some nice grilled salmon bowls. So those are full meals that grant me the nourishment buff, which just kind of makes it so that you don't lose any stamina during the time while that's active. Really good for being up and around and active and running around. It also means that you basically regen health instantly, so gonna be useful for an upcoming fight. I did some final checks on a lot of the inventory, double checking and confirming that I had left the nether wart behind, and yes, I absolutely can tell you that I did.
I left the nether wart back over here. Oh, that's such a bummer.
Instead, pulling a lot of the supplies from the ship to get my weapons in order. I'm taking all the bombs, all the stews that give me strength, the dragon's eye gem so I have extra health, the rocket launcher, the skull of doom. But again, as if this world knows what I'm up to, an ominous storm started to roll in. This is that scene where the hero is standing there and they see thunder in the distance and it's gonna be like, what do? We fight. But I'm just glad that I made a weather deflector and invested in this base properly.
That forming a tornado right there? I think it might be. Deflector. There it is. Oh, I missed it. I keep wanting to catch lightning hitting that. I'm just gonna watch. Don't tell me it's gonna stop. I know the second I look away, it's gonna hit again.
But I went to sleep unfulfilled on a lightning strike caught on camera the next morning, dealing with one that happened just over the roof right as I woke up, and my cape being on backwards, which took a little bit of running back and forth to correct. But now, sufficiently with the mood set, I think, I warped over towards the frozen area and started to do a little bit of prep work. I want to fight the boss here, but I want to try to arrange it to be the most in my favor it possibly can be. So I started digging a tunnel down into one of the ice areas, also blocking off a section directly in front of it with 2 high walls that can contain the mob inside. I dug a long tunnel, making a small 3x3x3 room, started to buff myself, got my golden apples and stew at the ready, blew the horn, and nothing happens. So I made a little 2x2 pit of water, multiple blocks deep, blew the horn again, and nothing happened a second time. It's almost like this mod kind of knows what I want to do. So it's doing everything it can to prevent me from cheesing this boss fight, and instead forcing me to take her on in an open field. So be it. Cornelia's attacks, I mean, she came out of the gate swinging, first of all, but secondly, the anime slash diving through me does a really big chunk of damage. I'm trying to rely on bombs so that I can do damage at range, and each one is doing a visible amount of damage to her health bar, but it's gonna be slow going if this is the only way that we're gonna be doing combat. And it also doesn't help that she's knocking me down into the water where I start to freeze to death. So I started getting a little bit more physical, as her combos can take me down to only a few hearts left, and I need to attack within the windows that she is recharging and trying to dodge my way through that. I eventually found a spot where it was this basically donut of terrain with a singular ice spire in the middle, and I thought, let's just keep kiting her around. Okay, this is working, this is working. So I basically go in, I get a couple hits, I do a decent chunk of damage, I run off, and I try to recover. I'm using the salmon's nourishment so that natural regen is just kicking in pretty quickly, and then relying on golden apples to supplement my health recovery whenever I get low or get caught off guard from a combo. I also tried using the bombs with this strategy, just basically running around the central ice spire, throwing the bomb, going in for a couple swipes of my own sword while she's busy with her spear, and just consistently rotating around and trying to kite for damage. And the fighting kept going well into the night. Oh, this is actually working. Ow, ow. Ow, 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 ow. I have so many bombs. Oh my god. You got very angry very quickly. Considering I basically just triggered a second phase, which almost completely wiped me out, cost me several golden apples and pearls to escape, and she fully recovered her health, we were basically back to square one. So I ran away a little bit and napped on the ice, trying to rethink my battle plans going into the following morning. So my thought process now was, let's trap her. The kiting around that central ice spike seemed to work pretty well, so if I can build a structure up around her where I can do damage to her, but she can't do damage to me, or at least not as much damage to me, there's a chance that I could potentially take this fight on, and I need to do it now while she's at full health because her mobility skyrockets once you get her down below that like lower third where her second form kicks in. But with strength on board, I'm able to do a lot of damage, once again triggering her second phase and the health regeneration that comes with that. The fact that I'm poisoned, I'm taking a ton of damage from those shurikens, and she's recovering health near constantly means that this isn't gonna work in an open field, and my gear is nowhere near sufficient enough. And then the first totem broke. So I tried to stay mainly at range. The bombs were doing damage, mainly because they were explosives, but things like arrows or tridents, completely immune. You can only really damage her with booms or melee. So I thought, let's reevaluate the plan. I dug a 1x2 tunnel into one of the glaciers, blocking off the entrance, and then focusing on expanding the tunnel so that it was big enough to accommodate Cornelia's hitbox. My thought here is if I made a space that I could get her to head into an enclosed space and then block it up behind her, dodging through, my plan was basically lure her into the room, block it up behind me. But it was risky.
Oh, did I catch her? I think I caught her.
So with Cornelia now trapped inside, I'm able to consistently hit her with bombs so that I'm able to keep her health dropping, or go in for melee in between her attack timings to do a more significant chunk of damage. But she can absolutely still damage me, and I need to be careful. But this time, however, when I got her health a little bit lower, the second phase didn't activate right away. And I got her health the lowest I'd had it yet, only down to like that last 10th of her overall health bar. The shurikens weren't activating. The damage, the speed increase, that wasn't activating either. And I think maybe capturing her inside of a small enclosed space cut off her powers or her connection to the ocean, which then gave me an opportunity. The only problem is she constantly recovers that last 10th of health. And no matter how many rockets I send her way or how many bombs I throw in, she's always getting better.
She's just shredded my armor. Ow, she's just destroying everything. I am almost fully out of food. I am now out of, well, no, I have a tiny bit of food. All right, I have one chance. If this doesn't work, this boss is gonna be left unconquered. Skull of Doom. Nope, come here. Come over here, Captain. Oh no, I don't like that. It's open. Why is it open? Skull of Doom. It works! It works! Skull of Doom! Skull of Doom! 3-bolt helmet. Works helmet and suit only. This suit provides you with oxygen underwater. Oh my god. Unbreaking 3. Oh! That looks ridiculous. Okay. God, all of my armor is just shredded. My god, I've done so much damage. Let's go open the frozen key.
So having defeated Captain Cornelio with the Skull of Doom, I can't tell you how many times I've had to re-record me mentioning it, and that's the one time I'm just leaning into the meme. Okay, anyway, back to the video. I headed down the shaft in the ice, dealing with a few mobs on the tier where there's that one kind of ice shelf before diving down the remainder of the water, making it down to the sunken area underneath. I worked my way around and to the house, hearing a bit of a weird noise as I was walking down the path, finding actually a little section just kind of cordoned off with a few more of those frost zombies inside that I was able to kill relatively quickly, grabbing a little bit of loot from the chests here. But with that all collected, I swam over towards the chest and took a moment before unlocking it.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I don't have respiration anymore. I was gonna have a big moment where I just stood in front of the chest. I don't have respiration because my helmet broke. All right. Let's see what we get. Let's do it out here where I can see it. Iron Axe. Rune of the Storm. Attach it to the sword in your offhand, increasing its damage in cold biomes by 33%.
So with a lot of really good kind of end game loot now available to me, I headed my way back up the shaft, having to climb up a lot of the different water and taking a decent bit of freezing damage. I'm not gonna lie. This was a little bit of a more scuffed run up, as I no longer can breathe underwater since my helmet had been broken. But I made my way over the ice, heading back towards the waystone and warping back to the rig. I did a little bit of organizing of some of the more condensable loot that I had collected, dropping off what remained of all of the explosives and different items that are for venturing out and getting into trouble back onto my ship before heading in for a quick nap as we go to wrap this up. And day 99 is a bit of a victory lap. I looked into what I can make with all of these parts from all of the anglerfish that I've been killing from the blood moons, seeing that I can make a set of terrible armor and a sword called a fin cutter, which just looks cool. I also realized that that really rare, cool stew that I had found wasn't so rare.
Oh, I could have just made this?
But I made myself an armor stand to drop off my existing pirate robes. They had served me well, and while breaking the helmet was unfortunate, the 3-bolt hat served as a really nice kind of aesthetic topper on this statue. But it was time to no longer be a conqueror or corsair. Now I was one with the ocean, making myself a full set of terrible armor from everything that I had collected from all of these mobs, and crafting myself up a fin cutter, a new aquatic blade.
I am one with the ocean, and the ocean is one with me.
After that, I dove down to the enchanting tier of the rig, just putting some basic level enchants on all of this stuff so I had a decent bit of additional protection and some mobility and respiration that I could just be safer as I wrap this up. I worked to finish enchanting the sword, diving into the water underneath and putting down those bubbles that I had collected, which give you Dolphin's Grace whenever you're closer to them, basically making a real swim lane right here underneath the rig. With this, I can swim faster and farther than I have ever before, and it really feels good to be one with the ocean. That being said, I'd spent the last 100 days just plundering the resources of this land. So I went and stacked a lot of the gold, the emeralds, and treasures on the very upper deck, safe from storms because of the deflector, and far enough away from other passing roving pirate gangs that I can show off my wealth in safety. There was even more than I could fit, so I threw the remaining little bit in the barrel, just setting that all there for you to play with later, reestablishing the cannons to defend my treasure. And on the morning of day 100, I emerged from my pirate gear in my more aquatic one, don't mind that my head was on backwards, saying goodbye to my dog and everything I had built, jumping into the ocean to sail off to my next adventure.